live. Once that goes, we'll see. We've got the good lighting. And the live stream is live. And I'll pull up the pop-up chat. And then on my phone, I'm going to throw a chat in there just to
make sure it all works.
Yep.
Yeah.
Make sure I spell everything correctly. Boom. That's there. Copy link. I'm going to post this in the Discord. So if you guys are following the Discord page, you'll be able to check that out. And then I'm going to also put it on Snapchat. So if anyone's already in here listening or watching, let me know if the sound is coming through okay. Any other stuffs. Boom, boom. And so anybody who knows us, if you can, let me know if you hear any of the background noises. I can kind of tune stuff out a little bit. That way I can really get things right. So like even me like turning this paper, if that's like way too loud, let me know. Okay. The other thing is I won't have my phone for this either because my phone's about to die.
Oh, that should be.
So I'm
you
gonna.
have your computer here too. You can.
Yeah, well I have my computer, so I can kind of use that too. But for the most part, I'll kind of be winging some things because I haven't really been up to date on everything. Darren is in the house.
What's up, Darren?
Okay, you start us off.
All right, so I think the first thing we can talk about is basically like the role of social media. Like obviously we had all the Twitter files come out. The Twitter files seem to be a really, really big deal. Everyone wants to talk about them. But I think that the main topic through the Twitter files is like, what do we want social media to really do? Because like right now we have all these people saying we want social media to specifically be whatever the fuck it wants to be. The government has no involvement. And some people are like, we want the government to go in there and tell it exactly what it needs to do. And then also, there's many things around that, like how should Twitter be blamed if people go on there and say some crazy stuff? Should Twitter be blamed? Should those people be blamed? And then also, if Twitter's not being blamed, what security should they have over the people talking on there? Like, what should they be able to do to moderate those people then?
That's okay. I think that's a really great starting point. So, as far as the role of social media, I think it's so hard to say, and I think it's definitely a topic that's up for debate and should be open to conversation because it's such a new thing. So if you think about just general, I always kind of go back to general media. Like we've had general media for what, 300 or 400 years.
Yeah, even before that. I mean, like
even before that. I mean, the Romans had some sort of media, but just kind of like media as we know it. Like what's the oldest newspaper in the world?
I would have no idea. Probably like the New York Times or New York something.
Well, I'd say London Times.
That's true. Yeah.
I mean, that's got to be three.
Look it up right now.
Yeah, look it up right now. 300-400 years old. And so, depending on how you age the Earth and stuff like that, like it's not a super long time. But what do you got?
It's 1664. Guess what country?
Oh gosh, France.
Italy. It's called I have no idea. It's Italian. I don't know.
But 400 years about, right?
Yeah, 400 years ago. So it's a really, really long time ago that we had these publishers.
Yeah, so pretty much media as we know it, newspaper media, print media, has been going on for 400 years. We've had 400 years to establish, the do's and don'ts and the way things work. And for the most part, it works all right. And I have something to say about that.
Like how the news kind of reports on stuff?
Kind of.
Okay.
Like a hiccup in modern times with print media.
Yeah. So, do you want to talk about mainly like the media right now, or do you want to go into social media?
I say we can go right into social media. I just wanted to put that up as far as like a head check. Like we've had social media since when did MySpace come out? Early 2000s, 2003.
Yeah, it was
2002.
Really long time, yeah.
That didn't last super long.
I mean, there was messenger boards before then.
Yeah, there's messenger boards, but as far as like social media as we know it today, I would say MySpace, which is kind of irrelevant. So then you say Facebook, which is like 2010, 2011, when it starts kind of taking off.
Yeah.
And, has developed into what we have now. And so the role, I don't know. I don't. Where would you start off? What would you say the role of social media is in our culture, economy,
so
XYZ?
My thing is that Elon Musk talks about Twitter as if it's like a digital town square, and he constantly refers to it as this digital town square, which everyone has the right to go in and say whatever they want. And the idea is nobody should be banned from the town square. Obviously, if you commit a crime, if you're threatening people, you're going to go to jail. You know, and that to me that sort of makes sense. But the problem is that I don't think that anybody wants it to be like that. I don't think that anyone wants Twitter just to be this space where anyone can go in and say whatever they want, and there's no like algorithms or anything. It's just like this board of people saying whatever. Because then every single site's going to be the same thing.
It's just going to turn into chaos.
Yeah, and then every single site, no matter where you go, you're just going to the place with the most people. Because the idea is like there's nothing better about each site.
So I've listened to a few different people talk about this, and from what I've heard from them is they don't necessarily want like 4chan.
Yeah.
They want there to be some sort of policing.
Yeah.
And like one of the big things that I hear about all the time is, people want free speech on Twitter, stuff like that. Well, does that mean doxing is okay? Because technically doxing is First Amendment right.
Yeah.
But online, it's a whole different story.
Yeah, it's technically like it's an actual crime, I believe.
Yeah.
People go to jail.
But like so for instance, this is something you guys will learn if you haven't bought a house. The second you buy a house, that your name and your address become public knowledge. So it's public knowledge that I own this house, and through a tiny bit of digging, you can find out who owns my property or what property I own. And so you buy a house, and I've said this before, I don't know where, but you remember when you were a kid and your parents would get mail? And you'd kind of be like, man, that's cool. I wish I could get something in the mail.
Yeah.
Well, I always remember thinking that, like, man, it'd be so cool getting, like, they're getting like adult stuff,
Yeah, now mail is like a bad thing.
Now mail is an annoying thing. And like you buy a house and you just get boatloads of mail.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how do these people know my name and where I live? It's like your name becomes public knowledge, and they can send you stuff now.
Yeah, your information is what's being like bought and sold essentially too.
Yeah,
It's like, that's a big deal.
And I think if someone was to go to downtown Greer and start yelling out that, hey, I live at this address, that is public knowledge, and they're allowed to say that. But if I go into Twitter and someone starts yelling out where I live, that's like it's just a whole different story, and it needs to be thought about in a certain way. And I'm more to the more free speech, as much free speech as possible, more to like that avenue. But I don't want people going online and just shouting out where people live, or
because
popular people live.
Yeah, you don't know who's getting the information.
And I don't think when you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think when Elon Musk says like the town center type thing, and that's what he wants Twitter to be, I think he is still going to leave up rules. Like there are still going to be rules.
Yeah, he banned Kanye. He didn't unban Alex Jones.
Yeah.
He doesn't allow certain people on there with extreme opinions.
Well, I think, so I've heard a little bit about that, and the Alex Jones thing was kind of a personal reason.
Was it really? He just didn't like Alex Jones?
Well, he didn't like what he said about, I think
was it because there's certain
school shooting?
Yeah, so like defamation charges. He in a way it makes sense that he doesn't unban him if it's like if this can downgrade Twitter or cause Twitter to lose sort of like value. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost just, I hear it and I look at it and I go, okay, that's like a business thing.
Yeah. I think that Twitter should be run like a business. Like it's not like we don't own Twitter, they own Twitter. If they want to make all these crazy stupid rules on there, then we can all leave Twitter, we can go somewhere else.
Yeah.
But then it's also
hold on. So let me back you up on a second. I've thought that, but is that necessarily true? And I'll give you an example. Everyone has an iPhone. And when someone doesn't have an iPhone, you look at them like, oh, what an idiot. But there is no really like, if you're going to get a phone, and again, if anyone knows me, I'm the don't buy Apple person. But almost everybody is like pushed into this, well, you kind of have to have an iPhone because that's just what everybody has.
Yeah.
And you have the option to go and buy other stuff, but there's such, I don't want to say monopoly. They have such a control of the market that's like, can you really go other places?
Yeah. It's like Rumble. They've been trying to push Rumble recently, but that's like right now nobody really goes to Rumble. And also Rumble's banning, I think, certain people for like whenever they say, I don't think it's like specifically any threatening stuff. I think it's like actually people are having certain opinions on there and they don't want that. So they're starting to actually ban certain people. So they are going back on what they said about like free speech. Everyone says whatever they want. I don't think that they even believe that necessarily.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think that the main argument about what Twitter should come through like Section 230. You know what that is?
Yeah.
Okay, so like Section 230 basically states that like people who are publishers versus people who are, I believe, people will say platforms. Platform's not the word. They just made up the word platform. The actual document, I believe it's like internet media sources or internet media services, I think is like the word. Anyways, so this whole thing describes like what securities or what impunities Twitter should have whenever someone goes on there and says certain things against them. And I think that like if you're gonna argue like to take certain things away from Twitter or certain rights away from Twitter, that's what you have to kind of go through. I feel like.
Yeah, I think that Section 230 needs definitely to be worked on. It kind of, I think, some of the history of Section 230 is it has something similar to like the phone companies, because in the past, like phone companies didn't want to be liable for if someone has AT&T, just for instance, someone has AT&T and someone calls on the phone and says, hey, we're going to go do X, Y, or Z, and it's like a bad thing. AT&T is not liable for what is said over their lines.
Yes.
And that's kind of where this whole thing comes from. And the argument is, from my understanding, is if Twitter doesn't want to be liable for what is said on its platform, or any social media doesn't want to be liable, or what's the way to explain liability? Just like they don't want to be sued for whatever gets said on their platform.
Yeah, they don't want to be responsible.
Yeah, if they don't want to be responsible for what gets said on their platform, then they can't try and change what is said or try to control what is being said, because then you're technically a publisher.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the argument with the whole Section 230. And Section 2, I think, oh gosh, with a lot of the social media type stuff, it's going to change in the future. Like it just will, because people are going to get into government and leadership who grew up with social media and stuff like that, and they'll have a better understanding.
Yeah.
But from my thing of seeing it right now is it's a bunch of old people who don't have a clue what they're talking about.
You can say that, but my argument should be like, if you read the bill right now, what it kind of states is that like, essentially you have these, they actually use the word interactive computer services. You have interactive computer services, and then you have publishers. And the way they break it down is, as long as you're not the one creating that sort of source of information, then you can moderate it, do however you want. But the idea is like, they specifically say right here, like if you're going to moderate it, it says no provider or user of an interactive computer service shall be held liable on the account of any voluntary action taken in good faith to restrict or to limit the availability of material that the provider or users consider to be obscene, lewd, lascivious, filthy. Basically, they say a bunch of different things where it's like, if you think this stuff isn't right, if you think it's like bad, then you can take it down. And like it holds that right to like it gives it to that interactive computer service.
Yeah, and what I would say is some of those words could hence turn into a slippery slope.
Yeah, you have no idea what those words mean. They basically mean like anything that you don't like, you can take down.
Yeah, and that's where the problems then come up, I think.
Yeah,
but here, let me say this real quick. I understand that like the problems will come up and it's so loose, but even if you try and clamp down, there's still issues in the other direction. That's the thing that's so difficult with all this social media and making bills and laws and stuff like that. That's where I really have a hard time.
Yeah, in a way, I can agree where it's like this becomes an issue when we start talking about big things that we all like, consider to be like a really big deal, like the election. Like if this is where people are getting a lot of influence, like celebrities, maybe participants in like the actual presidential election, if we're banning specific people from getting that influence, then that could in turn basically affect the election. So that's where we're starting to come in and say, all right, we need to be able to regulate Twitter in a way to where we don't like it doesn't affect things like elections, or maybe it just affects people's like actual, I don't know, like basically we're just not trying to harm people to where like they just don't have a voice at all. I think that's where we're trying to step in.
Yeah, it's difficult. Let's keep our words in check. I think he's talking about language as far as like cursing and stuff.
Okay.
which I agree. I kind of want to. I'm trying to not do that type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's very difficult, I think, because then you get something like Twitter becoming, a private instead of a publicly traded company. So then it's like, well, private companies can do whatever they want,
Yeah.
and now they, could they ban other people? I think have you ever seen the episode? I'm not trying to be this guy. Have you seen this JRE podcast guy? But the one with Jack Dorsey, Vijay Gadde, and Tim Pool, where they debated all the stuff that was going on Twitter.
Was it the one you sent me?
Mm-mm.
Okay, then I probably wouldn't have seen it. I don't watch.
This one was from like years ago.
Okay, then
This
I wouldn't
is
have
the
checked
only.
it out.
This is the only reason why like Tim Pool's even a thing.
Okay, so this is where he basically got his first.
Yeah. So I'll just give you the really quick, short TRDL. Tim Pool was on there, like just by himself, and he was like kind of a nobody. And I think Rogan had him on because he's just interested in his news, like on the ground news style or whatever. And then I think Tim had said some stuff about Twitter and about social media in general. And then right after that, Joe Rogan had Jack Dorsey on, and a bunch of people were pissed off because they felt like Joe Rogan didn't ask Jack Dorsey any difficult questions.
Yeah, it's difficult with Jack Dorsey because I don't know what he asked him, but Jack Dorsey, it seems like he never has any clue what's going on Twitter because all the Hunter Biden stuff he had no idea about. He's like, oh, that happened.
Yeah,
he was like, okay.
So then everyone got pissed. So Joe Rogan was like, well, I'll have Jack Dorsey back on and I'll ask him all the questions you want. And then he called Tim, was like, hey, would you want to come on with Jack Dorsey? Because you had something to say. So he's like, you're actually asking me to do this? He's like, well, I'm not as knowledgeable as you are, and you're the first person that popped in my head, so sure. And then Jack Dorsey brought Vijay Gadde on with him. If you guys haven't seen the episode, it's really good. I don't have the number episode, but it's really good even though it's old. I just re-listened to it probably a couple months ago. And they're just going back and forth about, okay, why was this person banned? Why was that person banned? And what this podcast itself did for me is it's not like there isn't this like evil person sitting on Twitter or Facebook or whatever going like, I hate this person, and like deleting them. It's maybe there might be a very, very small amount of that going on. If it is happening, it's very small, but most of it is bias and unconscious bias just kind of happening. And the way that Tim brought this up was, it was Jack Dorsey really didn't say anything this whole time in this podcast. It was mostly their head of legal and Tim Pool and Joe going back and forth. And Tim was kind of asking like, why was this person banned? Why was this person banned? These are the reasons that person was given. This doesn't make any sense. And a lot of the stuff they talked about were the trans issues, like people saying like, hey, misgendering, for instance. And they're like, we have a rule about misgendering. Like, you're not allowed to do that. And Tim Pool's like, yes, that's bias. And they're like, no, it's not. Because these transgender people, they are more willing to go and commit suicide if they see this plastered all over social media. And Tim Pool, him and Joe Rogan, their kind of comeback was, yes, but misgendering is a left thing. So you have something that the left believes in, and the right absolutely does not believe it even exists. So you have two different sides of the argument, and you're choosing to make a rule about the beliefs of one side.
Yeah, I think that.
And that's where the bias comes in, and that's where people see all these things kind of happening.
Yeah, I think it's difficult because Twitter has the right, or they have the power to go and say we want to make these policies a thing. I think that what we can all agree with is to make sure that these policies are actually enforced how they're said they're enforced.
Yeah.
So there's not some hidden policy that you're getting banned for, or you get banned and they say it's this policy and you don't know which tweet it is, and you have 1,000 tweets and you're like, did I even break this policy, or are you just giving me the shit? The idea is and this is actually a big New York study talked about this, what we actually want to see. They said first they wanted to provide greater disclosure for content moderation action. So like specifically, it's like, what am I being banned for? Name the tweet, name why it's bad, and name like what you think I meant by it. And then we can like, you can have like an appeals process there.
Yeah, and then, well, yeah, okay, you said, I would say what you can do to then come back on. Like some of Twitter's policies were if you delete the tweet, then we'll put you back on. And some people would say, no, I'm not. And that's fine. That's their choice.
Yeah.
You know, so there's kind of like martyr themselves as far as Twitter goes. And let me see the comment. This might be one of the episodes. Not to be mean.
He said not to be mean because we were cussing, and then you were like, that was after that.
Oh.
But,
well, I didn't mean to if I did.
Yeah. No, I think I was the one cussing. But anyways, yeah. One of the things I wanted to bring up mainly is that it's not the role of the government to kind of tell Twitter how we want them to run their site. You know? It's our job because we're like the users. We control that. And I think that one of the most important things is that like Twitter, whenever it comes to like disclosing how they do stuff or how their algorithm works or how they like ban people, they don't want to show people this, not because they're like trying to be hidden or these people like the specific like elite group or anything. It's because they don't want to tell other industry, other companies, like other social media
Company
platforms.
secrets.
Yeah, trade secrets. They don't want to release any trade secrets. They want to hold that back as much as possible. But we should tell them like we want to know this or we want to know that. And I think the best way to do that is to simply say like, hey, there was this person that was banned. We want to know why they're banned. Maybe we change this policy. And I think like specifically in the Hunter Biden laptop story, that policy that they used was like the hack materials, which technically it was, but like it was like the way it was explained was like really shitty. So like,
wait, what do you mean? So I've heard the hack materials thing, but refresh me on why that was said.
So the idea behind why the Hunter Biden laptop story was banned was, first off, they had the talk with the FBI. They had some general talks where it was like the FBI talked about like there's 2016 Russian collusion. They don't want any more stories coming out that could be like Russian like fake stories. So the idea is that,
and they specifically mentioned stories about Hunter Biden.
No, they didn't. It in the actual Twitter files, he mentions this, that Yoel Roth had an affidavit that where he's like I think we talked about Hunter Biden and that thing. But the problem is that the other affidavits say specifically, because they're asked, they're like, hey, did we talk about Hunter Biden? Did you guys talk about Hunter Biden? They were like, no.
If someone doesn't know what an affidavit is, that's just a written statement.
Yeah, it's a written statement from like, or it's just like basically you say something and they'll take your witness account.
Yeah, your witness account in writing.
So it's very argued whether or not Hunter Biden was mentioned in that meeting. But the problem is that like with Facebook, with the other social media platforms, Hunter Biden wasn't mentioned. With the other people in the Twitter meeting, they're saying, yeah, we don't remember seeing Hunter Biden. But then in the Twitter files, they mentioned that Yoel Roth's affidavit had this line that said, like, I think that we talked about Hunter Biden. But, like, they don't really know. So to my thing is, like, I believe that it's, like, just general. They probably talked about general stuff like, hey, watch out for fake stories about, like, the Russian collusion. Maybe some Russians are making some fake stories or something. And then when Twitter saw this story come out about the Hunter Biden laptop story, which even if you believe that like, yeah, it was definitely a real story at the time, if you're seeing
a little bit closer,
if you believe that like this is like your first time seeing this and you're like, you read this story, it sounds ridiculous. Like a laptop was, yeah, you're good. But basically it's like, imagine a story comes out about like Trump where they're like, hey, we found this laptop in a shop and it reveals all this stuff about Trump's incriminating stuff and we have any like backup to like where we got this source. It just happened to come from a laptop in a shop and it talked about all this stuff about Ukraine. Like it just seems like a ridiculous story. So Twitter banning it kind of makes sense to me, but there's also like conflict within Twitter.
So here's my other thing. So I've heard that, and then I heard because someone brought that up as an issue, and then this is what I heard. Do you really think rich kid who can have or buy anything he wants, and on drugs, multiple different drugs, would forget his laptop at a repair shop?
I think he definitely could.
It's definitely a possibility.
Yeah, he could.
It's in the realm of possibility.
Yeah, and it's not like, I don't think that's the important part. I think the important part is like, how do we relate what's in the laptop and what can be verified on the laptop to what's going on with like the greater, like what does it mean for the election? And then also like, how did Twitter handle this? Is what Twitter did an overstepping of like their rights or their what's it called? Their actual like ability.
So my thing is, I've heard the, Twitter pulled down, the stuff on Hunter Biden because there was lewd images in it. And I get all that, but Twitter also wouldn't allow me, if I might be wrong, this might only have been Facebook, but the people weren't allowed to post the URL to the article of the Washington Post. And that is where I think it's kind of, because if you go on a website and the website knows you're not 18 or older, it won't show you images. It'll blur it. Google will blur it.
Yeah.
Most people use Google. And for you to block the URL, if anything, put a warning label on it.
But my thing is that if this is like a completely fake story, you don't want anybody taking it or like reading, like kind of like talking about it, because it's like if it is a completely fake story, Twitter doesn't want to be liable for the people that let this story get out, and that was their like main thing, and that's
Yeah, but they can't be liable because it's Section 230.
No, when they say liable, I mean like they don't want to be the people that they're seen in the public as like they just let all these fake stories fly on their website or on their platform.
Yeah, and they took it down, and I think that them taking it down, no, I don't care whether they were right or wrong in it, it affected the election in some sort of way.
I don't know if it completely did affect the election.
Well, there are people who have signed statements saying that if they would have known about this, they wouldn't have voted for Joe Biden.
Well, it's different from like people saying like going back and saying like, oh, if I knew about this, I wouldn't have voted for him.
Hindsight's 2020.
But the idea is like, if we look up the actual traffic from what the post got, the actual traffic wasn't really that great. And I think that just the idea of it being banned from social media was probably what gained even more traffic. If anything, the whole story itself like blew up. My thing is that I don't think that this story being banned was like a crazy, like it didn't change the outcome of the election entirely.
I don't think it changed it either. I don't necessarily think it would have changed it, but I just would have liked to have seen this being open out there in open discussion. And if it's fake, it'll be ratioed. That's the.
I don't think that's true. I don't think it would have been ratioed.
Okay, well, if it wasn't, well, then here's the thing. Then you're just sitting there saying like, well, Twitter doesn't want fake stuff on their platform, and it's like, okay, who deems it to be fake or real? Because, and I know you might not believe this, but there's so many times when you go to a news article and the news article says sources say, and there's been people who have worked in newsrooms saying that hey, they've went down to the street, walked up to a random person, have that random person give them a statement they want, and then they'll go sources say, sources near the White House. And when they say near the White House, they literally mean
just like people
in
the
vicinity
of
the White House.
Yeah, I think that's obviously ridiculous whenever they do that. Like whenever they don't properly source their material. And also a lot of like news, like a lot of like articles, if you ever read them, they'll say like, oh, I got this information from this article. And then this information say I got it from this.
Yeah.
And then you have a daisy chain of like all these people just saying that they got information from each other and they don't know where the information came from.
Exactly.
And there's shit like that. But like the idea is like, I think that with this Hunter Biden laptop, I think that Twitter genuinely believed that like we couldn't really figure out where these sources came from. It doesn't really sound that legit. So we're going to take it on ourselves to kind of like not allow this story to spread. And then the main idea is also like if they allow this to spread and it becomes a really big story and a bunch of people talk about it and it does have like some slight effect on the election and then it turns out it's not true, it's like with that, then it's not like they actually are liable in terms of like, because they swayed the election. Because FBI was specifically saying like we don't want you guys, like we want to make sure that you guys are watching for these fake
stories. Let me ask you about this. What about the Jussie Smollett story? What about the Trump peeing in beds with prostitutes story? The Trump collusion story? There's been 50 stories that were all totally fake that all spread on Twitter, and they weren't worried about that spreading on their platform and being totally fake. I mean, just the what about the NASCAR one with the hanging noose? They had 12 FBI agents go out to a NASCAR track to look at a noose, and it's a pull string for like a attic access or something. And that was massive headlines posted all over Twitter. And they weren't worried about that story being fake or ridiculous. The Jussie Smollett video, that's court. That went to court, and it was fake.
So my thing is that I think the best way to argue this is like, is Twitter biased, or do they have this like main bias towards like the left versus the right? And I think that you'd have to kind of like show that, like, obviously there's these crazy stories that get posted and stuff like that. I'm not sure. I'd have to read those stories myself to fully understand like how did Twitter deal with this? How did they run these stories? But the idea is like, if we're going to look at like whether or not Twitter's like biased in terms of like banning stories, or whether or not the algorithm itself is biased, we can look at like certain studies and see like, all right, well, based off the algorithm, like it's actually there's a study here. I think it was from the University of Cambridge. People went through and they were like, let's take a bunch of people on the right, like politicians, a bunch of people on the left, and let's see whether or not their voices are like amplified the same. Because the idea is, if Twitter was typically being very like biased, that these people on the left would be amplified much more than the people on the right. But what they found was that it was basically equal, if not in some countries, the right actually had a much larger amplification. But
for politicians.
Yeah, for politicians, yeah.
Yeah, not for journalists.
But that's, it's difficult to go and say like, well, these like journalists, like I'd have to see. I don't know any studies or anything that show like these studies are or these news sources are banned and these ones aren't.
I know, but like you can go and look at the people who came. I don't know. This is gonna sound stupid, but yeah, I don't have like a study that says like, oh, here they went through journalists and they put them on a scale of progressive and conservative, and these people more got banned. And to be honest with you, I think there is a study about that. If I'm not being wrong,
Okay, that'd be really cool.
I'm pretty sure there is.
My thing is that it's difficult because when we're saying like these stories got banned and these stories didn't, it's like what are the time frames for those stories too? Did those stories just happen to like just pop up outside of the election cycle, like when people weren't really like it's not that close to the election to where it wouldn't have that large of an effect on it? And then also like there's so many like questions I would have to have with those stories. Looking up the studies.
I use DuckDuckGo. I don't like looking up information during. Let's go to the conclusion. This doesn't really answer my question at all.
Yeah.
But I'm almost positive there was some sort of
That showed like
study or done that when it looked at broadly, I think it looked at not just people but like movements. Movement, if you could categorize a movement as a right or a left movement, those movements were toned down more or shadow banned or whatever. And then for me, you have the. Do you remember when Elon Musk said he's going to buy Twitter and everyone lost and gained followers?
I don't remember any like gain or loss or anything.
You never heard of that?
No.
Really?
I don't know.
Like, okay. The day Elon Musk said like I'm buying Twitter, Joe Biden lost like 300,000 followers instantly, just dropped, and Joe Rogan gained like 800,000 followers a day. Tim Pool said he was gaining like 100,000.
So you're saying like the algorithm changed.
Yeah, like something changed. Something was wrong. And this is back when Twitter was claiming only 5% bots. And then Musk said, I'm going to buy it. And I think he might have mentioned looking into the whole bot issue because that was one of his reasons for, potentially not wanting to buy it or whatever.
Yeah.
And like that day, like the left and right, like people like NPR, like was just dropping like 40,000 followers a day.
That could be people leaving too.
Well,
like we don't know where.
That was the explanation. The explanation was, oh, people are leaving the platform. But it's like, who goes unfollows people and
They can delete their account, right?
Okay, yeah, okay. Have you ever deleted an account on social media?
I have no idea. It typically doesn't really allow you to delete your account. That's what I've noticed.
It's kind of difficult. So normally, what people do is they delete the app. And
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
trackable. You can track who adds or deletes apps, but it ain't necessarily gonna delete your profile.
Yeah, it's not going to lower your follower count. So I want to be very clear here. Like you're saying that you believe that there were bots on Twitter to make it seem like they gained followers for the left, and then also they would. I don't know if you'd skew the numbers for like Joe Rogan or like people on the right. I guess.
That's what a lot of people think, and that's what a lot of people who are like.
Well, no, my thing is,
these,
I'm not asking what people think. I'm asking what you think.
I think yes. I think it's a possibility. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's a high possibility.
Well, my thing is like, I would like to see because if Twitter's run by Elon now, he should have at least some sort of vague like there should be some sort of information there to show that this was being done. I'd imagine because like if they're showing all these different things about like how they ban people on Twitter, how like how the process worked for like reviewing like even like COVID data, like all this stuff. Like if they have all this stuff, why couldn't you just see like whether or not there were bots on Twitter?
Ooh, so I know that. So, and this is kind of a personal belief, but I think this is a couple other people have said something similar. And if he knows that Twitter's dying, right, and let's say they're going to be bankrupt by June of this year, right? Like that's their trajectory. They're going to be bankrupt by June this year.
Yeah.
If they do a WikiLeaks file dump, and they dump all the files for everybody to just go through, it's news for one day or news for 1 week. And people dig through it and it's, oh my gosh, this, oh my gosh, that. But if you want to trying to be smart about this, and again, who knows if this is what he's thinking or if this works. This is coming from my stupid ass brain. Forgive my language, Dan. And I'm not that genius, but if it were me and you wanted to try and drive up people on the platform, and you wanted to try and get some of your advertisers back, you would slow release everything, and you would give like you wouldn't drop all the big news, the big type stuff 1st. You would leak it slowly, only on your platform, and
like the Twitter files.
And you leak things as you go, week by week by week, and so that way you keep people coming back, and then you keep someone like me who doesn't really use social media to be like, man, I should probably get my Twitter page back because I kind of want to go and look at this stuff, and I haven't touched Twitter in I don't know how long.
Yeah,
I've almost never really used Twitter.
My thing is that if there was this information there, I think that it would be like when they post this stuff, I feel like they should just post a lot of information. Like right now with, I think it was Matt Taibbi, Barry Weiss, Michael Schellenberger, all these guys are posting this stuff. It seems like they're trying to drive, like they're trying to make this story more interesting than it actually is. I think there's not a whole lot of information they're actually giving that's like new information or something we haven't seen before. Like I think that Barry Weiss posted, I think like there was part 2 or 3. Which part is this? Part 2 of the Twitter files. There's like a bunch of stuff on like how exactly Twitter like labeled certain people for like these people shouldn't be like propelled and like the algorithm these people should be like. That was like new information, but like Matt Taibbi's first post didn't really have any new information. Or like like I think part 7 or 8 was talking about the FBI, like the FBI story about how like the Twitter talked with the FBI. That's not new information. All that stuff is basically it's already out there, but they just kind of like just put it in there and like they pieced it together, kind of.
Yeah.
And it's like I feel like if he was breaking this down, he'd actually show like legitimate like more information that we have no idea about, that we've never seen before. I don't know.
I think so. Like me, I'm sitting here and I'm like, give me the good stuff already. Like I want to, is this true or not true?
Yeah.
Like, let me get on with my day here. That's kind of what I'm waiting for. But if it were me and I was Elon controlling Twitter, I'm going to try and make this stuff look as juicy as possible. People to talk it up, only post it on my platform because now this company is my company. And the other thing is, well, I could kind of, what's up, Mike D? The thing is, I could kind of care less, this is not like the typical conservative like position, but if I'm Elon, I could care less what the views are. I just bought this company for $40 billion or $50 billion. Yeah. This thing needs to make money now, so I'm going to do whatever it takes.
Yeah, I think
to make money.
That's a really good. I've never heard that point, but that makes a lot of sense to me. That Elon probably doesn't have any hidden like agenda or anything. He's probably just trying to do what he can to make the most attention in Twitter, and that's exactly what's going to, like, he sees the story about like Twitter being this like hidden like thing where they have all this stuff behind the scenes. It's like really shitty. So he's like, hey, how about we just like get people to like write stories on this stuff, give new information that's like kind of interesting. Maybe you could like turn people's minds and it'll get people on Twitter. I think that's super good. Like,
and then here's my other thing. What you're asking for is show me the actual details. Show me the big stuff.
Yeah.
Show me the data, pretty much.
Yeah.
Have you ever watched, I wish Dexter was listening to this. Have you ever watched the Jimmy Neutron movie?
No, I haven't seen the movie.
Oh my gosh. Have anyone out there ever seen the Jimmy Neutron movie? Anyways, you know who Jimmy Neutron is,
yeah, Jimmy
right?
Neutron. Yeah,
he has his friend. Blast. Yeah, his friend Carl.
Yep.
And
Carl and Sheen.
I think it's Carl is sitting there. It's either one of them.
Carl's the redhead dude, like the round guy.
Yeah, and Sheen's the other. Maybe it's Sheen. And Jimmy says something in the Jimmy Neutron movie, and Sheen like puts his thing on. He's like, never argue with the data, like telling like them to just believe Jimmy. But anyways, like I want to see the data too, but I think that like Elon's going to try and make it look as
terrible as possible. Probably.
If that's what's going to drive him. But then the thing is, for me, it's like, do you give the honey pot at the end, or do you give it in the middle? You definitely don't give it in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then so I don't know exactly
when everything's gonna break out.
When and if.
Well, they just said also recently, I believe they actually dropped a finale, I thought, to the Twitter files.
Michael just said, bro, I think you just broke the internet with the idea. I never thought of it like that. Never thought of what, like what?
People chase money, which is actually is a really cool way of going about it.
And okay. And let me give you my bias too. So I was never really an Elon fan. I'm not really, hate me if you want to. I'm not really like a solar powered, battery powered car kind of guy. I like the rumble of the cars. Now, my bias is when Elon started pumping Dogecoin, which that closet right there with the flux capacitor sign has a Dogecoin miner in it. I started liking Elon a little bit more. That's my bias. So I'll be upfront. And after, I'm not going to lie, after the whole Dogecoin stuff and him pumping up and making me money, I kind of started not disliking him, but not liking him, just kind of being more middle of the road as far as my views on Twitter. Like my dad hates Elon.
Yeah.
Like he thinks he's an idiot. But I'm not like an Elon fanboy either.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of cool that he pumps my coin type thing.
Yeah.
So that's my bias with him.
I think that he's a really lovable guy, but the problem is that in what I've seen recently, and it's really weird, he always says that it's difficult for him to speak to the media because he's a super engineer guy. He's not like a public, like he's not a PR guy. He's a really good engineer, and that's what he is. And he keeps saying this, but have you seen the open, like I think it's the streamable Twitter meetings? Like they actually have people in these meetings.
Yep.
He said in one of the meetings something crazy. Like he was like, I think that one of the guys was like, hey, we have this problem. I don't know if it was tech debt, which is like there's extra lines and then that shouldn't be there and it's causing some slowdown of the system. But there's something wrong with the actual like code itself. There's too many lines of code, I think is how they explained it. And Elon's like, well, how about we just do a complete rewrite? And if you know anything about computer science, it's like you never just start from the beginning. You don't just throw everything away. You always take little pieces. Like you never rewrite the same thing if you already have it somewhere else.
Yeah.
You know? But like he says things sometimes like a complete rewrite or like he'll say things that are like it doesn't sound like it was something an engineer would say. It just sounds like you're making
I think that's not Elon isn't the super techie engineer guy anymore. He's the big I'm the richest man in the world billionaire business owner type of guy.
Yeah, he's like a project manager. He's not an engineer, like a design engineer necessarily. He's a project
manager. He used to be that.
Yeah,
right.
At one point, he might have been. Yes,
he used to be that person, and now it's like you just do what I say, or I'll fire you and find someone else. That's like big corporation head, CEO type person, and that's who he's had to be for the past, 10 years or whatever.
Yeah,
and he can't be that. Well, let's just do the smart thing and maybe save some of the code that we need. Whatever. He's the just rewrite the thing. Yeah, I don't care if you have to be here 24/7 for the next week. You're just going to do it or else I'm going to find someone else to do it type thing.
Okay. I think that we're pretty solid on the Twitter files. I think that if you want to talk about Hunter Biden laptop, maybe a little bit.
I
move on.
I did want to bring up your thoughts on, maybe not like FBI controlling Twitter. And because I don't necessarily think like the FBI was going, hey, Twitter.
I have a lot of stuff on this, by the way. You're about to ask me.
Hey, Twitter, I want you to delete this right now because we're ordering you. This is kind of my view on things. I think it was sort of a head nod, a tip, a nudge, a very, very minute, small, like, hey, you should look into this. Hey, we wouldn't mind if X, Y, or Z happened, or they could have said it in their own way, the legal speak way of like, please watch out for meddling in X, Y, or Z.
Yeah, I think that's fair though. I think the FBI has an opportunity to go in there and say, hey, there was some stuff that affected the election in 2016. We don't want that to happen now. We don't want these big stories to come out that are complete lies. We don't want because even if it doesn't really affect the election, you're gonna have people freaking out like it probably did all. You want to make sure that the election's integrity is kept sacred at every single point. And they have a right to go in there and say like, hey, these accounts have said some stuff that isn't true, or like you guys should look over this, or you guys should look over, but they shouldn't be the final ones making the decision.
But if people without a voice are a worry, or could be a problem, couldn't they just create their own page and get their information
to the public?
Yeah, but are you talking about create their own thing on Twitter? Because then it becomes just a following thing. Because it's like you know, I could, if I wanted to get some information out there, yeah, I can go create my own YouTube channel and put my information out there. But it's like, how long until that gains traction? And once certain things get to a certain point, it's like all the established players are established. And that's where things kind of get difficult. If I don't know if that answers your question or not. Michael said, "Isn't there an issue with big tech essentially owning the internet, like they own the majority of the servers?" So that's another issue too. And this is something that I've heard is a lot of people use Amazon servers, and if Amazon doesn't like what you, there's I think one or two instances of Amazon not necessarily liking a person or liking what they say. I think it was Rumble. Was it Rumble
Yeah, I mean,
or Getter?
it could be. Where, yeah, they're basically deciding who are the social media platforms.
Yeah. And Amazon said, no, you're not going to be on our servers. They had to go create all their own servers and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
but at the same time, it's like, how do we define what their right to do that? Because it's their servers, they own those servers. No one has a right to your house. But then again, it's like, well, this is a greater thing than your house. It's like, it's a really big debate. But I don't think it's like terrible for them to kick people off their servers. You know?
Yeah, it's just for me, it's you're showing me your true colors type thing.
I guess, but it could just be because, you know, if I own a company, I'm trying to make the most money. I may not have any actual like opinions in my head or anything. I might just be like, hey, Rumble might lose me money, so I'm just gonna take them off.
Let me ask you this. So, I don't want to get too far away from the FBI thing. So let me write a note here.
Yeah, we do need to get the FBI stuff's pretty. That's like the big topic.
Oh crap! I'm trying to remember exactly where I was gonna go with that.
Basically, I think the last thing you said was the FBI had a meeting with Twitter and said like, hey, you guys could probably
Yeah, I was gonna go like a totally different direction, but I can't even remember where I was gonna go with that. It was something good though, so I hope it comes back to me. But no, so my only thing is just this. Okay, so you know the guy who was giving the information to the journalists, they had to fire him because he was withholding certain things, certain Twitter files that were supposed to be given to, or he was like screening them before they were given to Barry Weiss and Matt Taibbi.
Yeah.
Do you know about that?
I didn't know about that, but
so if I have the story correct, there was a person, an employee of Twitter, who was the one handing over, or at least involved in handing over the information.
And was he like revising the information before he gave it to them? And he was like omitting certain things. Yeah,
and he used to be an FBI agent who was now working for Twitter. And please correct me if I'm wrong, because I might be wrong, but this is from what of the story, this is what I remember, is he on the first like one or two Twitter files, the reason why the first one was lackluster was because this guy screened some of the stuff that was supposed to be given over to them, and that's why that happened.
I don't think there was like, I think we have enough evidence to have a good idea of what happened. Like, I don't think there's anything like that. A lot of the information that was shown like within like the Matt Taibbi tweets, a lot of that was stuff we already knew, you know, or like specifically, I think it was part 8 that talked about the Twitter files part 8 that talked about like the FBI and like the actual involvement with the story. I think they said it was like the FBI subsidiary is how they considered like Twitter to be, or something like that. That was like their whole like framing. But all the stuff that he basically said was part of a report that happened when I think the Federal Elections Commission, I think the FEC is what they call it, they went through, they did a like investigation of Twitter, and they're like, hey, Twitter, did you overstep your bounds? Did you ban this story? Did it affect the election? And they did like a full investigation and like a hearing on it. And they even showed like which laws they could possibly be breaking and all that. So like what I saw from like that part 8 was that he was just basically repeating what was said within that investigation. Like it wasn't anything new. It didn't add anything from Twitter's side. Maybe if this guy did screen some stuff, did take some stuff out, revise some stuff, he could have taken out some important information. But I don't think there was anything there that was like really unknown. I think the investigation was pretty solid.
Yeah, but in a certain way, he hindered what was supposed to be given to them. So my point is, if right before this stuff is supposed to be handed out, this ex FBI agent who's now working for Twitter, which I think there was multiple people like that
Mhm.
used to work at NSA, now they work at Twitter. Used to work at, you know, the DOJ, now they work at Twitter. Used to work for the FBI, now they work at Twitter. And I'm not saying like, oh, it could just be these people are getting sweet jobs and they don't want to work for the government no more, so they go and work for this other
Mhm.
publicly traded company. Happens all the time.
Mhm.
But my thing is in business, I've heard this said a million times, and I don't run a business, so, but I'm just going to assume that it's true because I've heard it a billion times. It's who you know type thing. And it's about your connections that you have. Everyone's looking for connections.
Mhm.
So I'm not saying like the FBI was like, hey, you work for us now. We want you to quit and go work for Twitter.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that that was the way it went down. I'm more saying it's like, hey, I have a friend, me being the FBI. Hey, I have a friend. He used to work for us. Now he works for the FBI. I know him pretty good. You want me to call him and see what's going on? And that is, it's a, I'm not trying to point out a specific instance where you can say that wrong. Don't do that. What I'm saying is you have the building blocks of things that could go wrong type thing.
So when you say things go wrong, do you mean like Twitter could be following certain actions the FBI wants because there's certain people who used to work for the FBI in Twitter now and they have those connections?
And they have biases, yeah.
Well, my thing is that when they banned the Hunter Biden laptop story, it wasn't like everybody wanted to do it, you know?
No, I know, but I'm not just necessarily talking. Yeah, there was people on Twitter saying like, I don't know if we should really do this, and there was a back and forth on it.
Yeah.
And so I'm not saying necessarily. There's other examples, and forgive me for them not coming to my head right now, but there are other examples of just things going back and forth between the FBI and a lot of people brought up that I think I sent it to you, the like $3.5 million that the FBI paid
Paid
Twitter.
specifically, they kept saying it was an influence campaign. That was absolutely not. What they were doing was they were buying information from Twitter on certain users. And there specifically are certain laws. I think it was like, yeah, right here. So they're under section, I think 2702, 2703, 2704 of, what is it? I have the actual link to it right here. Anyways, so there's certain U.S. code that says like if we want to buy information from certain sites, we have to supply them with a payment. We can't just enforce it like you have to give us this information for your site. We have to like monetarily like kind of like compensate them. And so that's what that was for. Or that's like the reasonings behind that. It's not like this was like they were funding some influence campaigns. Like it, there are reasonings behind why that money was given to them. But like in the Twitter files, they don't talk about that.
Yeah. My thing is, did you think that amount of money was very small?
I don't know. I don't know the size at all. Like I wouldn't know if it's small.
3.5 million.
I mean, it's a lot of money, yeah, but I don't know.
No, but for Twitter, do you think that's a lot of money?
It's probably not that much money.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah.
And that's why when I first saw it, I was like, even if they are doing something wrong or paying for something wrong, why would they pay such a small amount of money?
Yeah, if it's like this crazy big deal where they're getting Twitter to do this extremely illegal thing, it's like 3.5 million is not enough for me to go and, you know, ruin my whole
So
company.
I thought about that.
Yeah.
And if it were true, again, I am sorry to be this guy, but if it were true that they were having them do certain things, I wouldn't say that were illegal, but certain things are in the gray area.
Yeah.
Type thing. It's not just the 3.5 million. It's the government ads. It's okay, Twitter, we're going to give you, because now if they say, hey, we're going to give you 10 ads for the military or 10 ads for law enforcement or government XYZ type thing, now Twitter is being paid by the government to push this ad. Now, if the government didn't want to give Twitter money, or let's say Twitter did something the government didn't like, they'd pull their ads, which would pull their revenue. And that's a way everyone kind of knows this is the whole like hiding money type thing. If it were to be a way of giving Twitter money, I don't think they'd be like, hey, Twitter, here you go. Here's some cash for doing what we asked you to do. It would more be like the government isn't that stupid if they were going to do something like that. It'd be like, it says, hey, I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine type of thing. And that's what I'm trying to get to with these people who used to be in the government being embedded in Twitter. That I think that it's just a possibility that there could be malfeasance going on.
Because right now I'm having to grapple with something where it's like they have reasonings for why this money was sent. They have like they have like obviously they posted the different emails and
Yeah,
everything.
but why wouldn't they have a reason?
Well, no, my thing is like if there's something else there, if Twitter on their side has some sort of files that show that this money wasn't really for information or they weren't giving them information, then why wouldn't they show that in the Twitter files? You know, why are they just showing just the money amount? Like it's like,
Yeah. And why hasn't more came out about it? I agree with you. And maybe more will come out. We don't know. Who knows?
yeah.
My thing is, I want to ask you too. It's just as social media as a whole. Do you believe there is a left leaning bias in the social media?
I think it behind the scenes, obviously, there's people like I think Matt Taibbi talked about the different like people who are like putting money or voting for money or pushing money forward for these different like groups and all that. I don't think I think there might be, but I think that what we want to do is we want to make sure that those policies that they have it's shown through their policy. We want to make sure that any single bias they have is shown directly to us, like, hey, we don't want like hate speech on our platform or something like that, you know? Or we don't want this, and that could be like a left leaning thing maybe. And you I want them to be very public about that, and I think that's what that's what we can get to by showing what people are banned for.
I'm asking you if you believe in this statement. The left has media, they have education, they have social media, they have Silicon Valley, they have the news, stuff like
I
that.
think they do, in a way, but I don't think that. I wouldn't say that's like a reasoning for why all these things are happening.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm just asking.
But I think
you.
they definitely do. But I think a lot of that is probably on part of the Republicans, because like if you think about it, like Republicans for such a long time are saying like social media is stupid, you know, arts are stupid. Go to school for like engineering. Don't go to school for art or social media or like this, what is it, like gender studies? Like don't go to school because they say that's stupid or whatever. Like I think if the right took more of a firm hold on that and said like, no, we're gonna put people into these areas. We're gonna like this is like something that we can't allow people to do, then it would probably affirm their hold a bit more, or at least give them some
That's my
more.
argument for Christians.
Yeah, like you shouldn't be so like completely like
If
blocking
you're,
out.
yeah, like for me, like with Christians, like, oh, these school, like all the Christians, they always complain about school or pick whatever thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well then why don't you, maybe older Christian women who've had your kids and now you're just sitting at home, go be a teacher.
Yeah, like that.
And
Yeah.
push your values, or I'm not even saying you wouldn't even have to push your values, but live out your truth in that area of the culture.
Yeah, like you could.
And be the change that you want to see in the world type thing, rather than just sitting and complaining about it. Like I've always said that.
I always thought like, all right, so there was always this push that like there's no women in engineering. Like why are there no women in engineering? This is like it's like a man's problem. But the idea is like I think that's more of like a problem where it's like maybe women should just become engineers more. Maybe we should like have this push to where like women should become like move into those engineering roles if that's an issue. Like if you think that's a problem, go be an engineer if you're a woman. You know.
Well, my thing is that women aren't attracted to engineering stuff because that's not generally their nature.
I think that's true. But if I was somebody who had that opinion where it's like I had a problem that there weren't any women in engineering, then I would go become an engineer.
Yeah.
You know, I'd go solve that issue myself.
Yeah, and I think, I think that you can definitely lay some of the blame at the feet of the Republicans or the conservative side of things, who say like, the left has academia and Hollywood and all this. My other question for you is, we know why these things are happening to a certain extent. It's happening because these companies, like the companies, think they can make money from it. They think, or they're not going to lose money, or they will lose money if they don't do it.
Yeah.
How true do you believe that is?
I think in a way they might, but I think they don't know. I think that they try and just make sure that their like PR is just completely neutral. Like I think that anytime there's like a bunch of people rising up saying there's some problem, I think they just try and fix that problem. I think to the left,
Everything is boring. LOL at me pooping.
engineering is boring.
Oh,
No, I agree. I think engineering can be very boring to many people. But I mean, like, I'm not the one complaining about there being a certain demographic issue with like people in engineering. Like, just the same way I wouldn't complain about like demographics in like any other field, you know?
well, I would only say that the demographics of people in, so
I think it's I think it's greater than just demographics though too.
yeah, for sure. I think so. Right now, if a bunch of liberals came, or sorry, I'll even restate that. If a bunch of women came into work on a job site, it wouldn't work. I'm not saying like, I'm not trying to be in a negative way, but if a bunch of women just showed up and it was 50-50, like a lot of men would just be like, all right, fuck this. Like either give me my own crew and make them their own crew. I don't want to deal with this crap. What about medical field? I think the medical field works because the medical field is already a woman dominated thing. And okay, Mackenzie, let me ask you this: as a woman, when a new person comes in onto your floor, and that person is a man, is is there any bit of bias towards, yeah, not doctors, I'm talking specifically nurses? If a male nurse comes in and they start working and they're new, now I'm not saying they've been there, for extended period of time, but if there's a male nurse that comes in and they start working with you, is there some sort of bias that makes the women on your floor who you are currently working with hesitant to like invite those and to invite that man in, and you're a little bit like distant from them? And I guess maybe that would probably be normal for anybody new coming in, but I think it'd be easier for a woman to come into the nursing field and like assimilate in than it would be for a man to. The same way it would be difficult for a woman to come into a construction job and assimilate in. It just is different. And so then what I'm saying with that point being made is, when you have these big massive things that kind of control our culture, there's the like, because I'm not even saying they're like total progressives. They're just, it bends to the left more than it bends to the right.
Yeah.
And I think it's just you can see the bias. Like, if anyone who has eyes, I think it's a little bit obvious, not to say that there is some sort of bend and that affects some of the way the culture is.
I think we have to be careful with that because humans aren't really like data machines. Humans don't just like you see two or three things like going wrong with, like, you see like two or three like right-leaning people get banned for something and you're like, oh, it's completely to the left. The left doesn't have like the social media is completely run by the left. But the idea is like we can go through like different studies and stuff like that. Like specifically like one I mentioned from like the University of Cambridge. I don't think it's as swayed as you think. I don't think it's like the left has a complete control or dominant like market like dominance over Twitter or over like these like social media platforms. I think they do sway a certain way, and I think it's shown in their policies. But I don't think it's like dominant to the point to where the right can't enter that field.
So I would say social media in Hollywood more slides to the side of being a pussy than not being a pussy.
Yeah,
And
like
I'm
a
not
lot of
talking about,
like actors and stuff, I guess is what you're saying.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm saying like learn to code. Oh, you're banned because we don't like that because that could hurt somebody's feelings type thing. And I'm not the person that sits here and goes, oh, don't ever care about someone's feelings. 'Cause I'm the first person to say, hey, you should consider that person's feelings. But sometimes it's just something so absolutely ridiculous. It's like, man, that sounds like some pussy ass shit. I
Yeah.
don't know why this is even being thought about. And then
Like
people
certain like rules on Twitter and stuff like that, or
I wouldn't even necessarily say rules, but well, yeah, kind of rules. And just for all social media in general, it depends on how many other males are working there. If it's the only male on the floor, it's a bit weird, but we have lots of guys in the ER. Yeah, I guess the ER is a place where there is a lot of guys, so it'd be a little bit different. As far as the, I want to get your opinion on a few other things. I kind of want to go back to the old media and get your opinion on the old media totally become like paper media, written media, totally becoming obsolete.
like you're talking about like regular media, like
Yeah.
news sources.
Yeah.
I don't think they are.
So I've heard a few things about now written media, because AI is now writing. Have you seen the AI?
I wouldn't believe that AI would. I don't think AI can simply do all the writing. I think they might use tools that help, like spell check or things like that, like to a greater extent than spell check probably. But I don't think AI is fully writing articles.
Yes, they are. And
I
you can,
doubt it.
and no, I swear, they're just a big thing that came out. You can go online right now and you can tell AI to write you a research paper for school.
I don't think it's gonna be great. I think there's people who go in there and check all of
dude,
that.
it's people are looking at it and they're like, this is a very good thing. And you can tell the AI to write it in a passive form, a neutral form, a positive form. So you can give it a story and tell it to write a story, and it'll write the story in a negative light, a neutral light, or a positive light. And it's writing full articles.
So are any of those articles published right now? Like, are there like,
Yeah,
so,
you can go and look them up.
well, yeah, I think they
And
might exist, but I don't think they're used.
no, they're not. I don't know if they're used, but the thing is, how would you even know?
I think that I don't really read that many articles. Most of the time, like for example, like what I do with like my research is like anytime there's a report, typically whenever the news articles come out, they report on like what a study
the
is.
data,
Or something.
yeah.
Yeah. And I immediately go through there, I click the link, go to the study, read the study. Like I don't care to like read their interpretation because half the time they're gonna have two quotes in there and they're gonna have their own story about what happened, you know. And I don't give a shit about that. So like I go straight to the study. But I think that yeah, we're gonna see probably a lot more, maybe like people who like get it to where I can automatically write their story and then they go through and they spell check, they go through and they make sure it's like written in the proper manner, maybe make sure there aren't things that are, I don't know, just inconsistent. I think we're probably going to see a lot more like automation to it, but I don't think it's fully going to be an AI's like running it. Nobody's going to be
Have
there.
you seen the videos of people making AI have full on conversations with people?
Yeah, I've seen more of those like bots talking to people and like
No, not like they have a video of like two people talking, and they tell it exactly what to say, and it says it in that person's tone of voice, and it only needs to hear like 100 words from them.
okay. Yeah,
And
yeah.
you can like so right now, like I could go to an AI chatbot or one of these like voice to text bots type things, and I could give it a video of me saying a set amount of words,
Yeah.
and I could say those set amount of words just individually, and that AI could take that video and the audio, and you could just type up a whole massive like piece, and it can make my face move, my mouth move, and it can change tone of voice and everything to make it look like I am saying all those things.
Yeah.
What do you think of that? Where do you think that?
Oh, you mean like the faces where it's like what is it? There's a certain word for it. It's like deep fake, I think.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, like a deep fake.
Yeah. I think that like I don't think that's like necessarily well, I don't know. People just use that mainly for like fun and stuff. Recently what I've seen is on Twitch, you have like text to speech. And instead of having like a regular text to speech voice, you have like Trump's voice or like SpongeBob's voice or someone just like whatever voice play for you and it'll say it. But most of the time it's kind of choppy. Like you can tell like there's random points where they'll just
the
like
new stuff is perfect.
I'd
Like
have to see
they're
it.
making rap songs.
So where do you my question is like where do you think this is going? Like what do you think they're doing with it? Are they just gonna have like full fake influencers?
The positive side of my head says it's going to be a lot of fun. And there's going to be just a whole bunch of fun things that we can do with this. And we can offload some labor work in the tech field.
Yeah.
The other side of me goes, this is also, if I don't want to say if fallen into the wrong hands, but there's really no way of knowing some of the stuff. Like if you really wanted to, you could destroy somebody's life with this. You could make them say stuff that they never actually said, and you can have a video of them saying it. You know, and it's like it gets to a point where like it's gonna get good enough to where you can't tell. And I think that's a massive issue. And then also with the AI writing, there's a couple people having a conversation. They're saying like kids don't have to write news or write papers anymore.
I think that they do. I don't think it's perfect. Like they probably don't have to write parts of it. Like I said, I think that most of it's there, but I think they have to proofread it and make sure it's not inconsistent, you know?
Yeah, but for the most part, if you were, you know, some kid in, you know, 10th grade or something like that, you're like, hey, you gotta write this thing on Shakespeare. You're like, fuck that, I'll go to the AI, pay him $5, have him write it, and then copy. If they had to make it in print, like write it themselves, like I'll just copy the whole thing down, hand it in.
Yeah, I think that's...
And there's no way of knowing.
Yeah, in a way, I think in that case, there wouldn't be a way of knowing. Like, it'd probably be very difficult. But I don't know, what are you saying that comes from that?
So what I'm saying is, as far as old media is, there comes a point where, like, journalists, they already are kind of hacky anyways. That's just my own opinion.
And they're just going to go through and just have an AI write random stories instead of actually... I think that in a way, it could get to that. I don't know if it's like a necessarily terrible thing, I guess. I don't know what the downside. I guess if they're like saying like making the AI write something, but like if the AI reports on what's being said in like probably a pretty truthful way at least, because I don't think it's gonna make up new statements and stuff. As long as the information's there, then I guess it's not necessarily that big. As long as somebody's looking over it too, I guess I wouldn't have a big problem with that.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just interesting. A lot of people think the AI thing is dangerous. Mike D wants to talk about women signing up for the draft. Do you have any opinions on women signing up for the draft?
I haven't looked up anything on like I don't know anything about that sort of argument.
So the
I
thing,
think that
the argument in the past was women want the right to vote, and a lot of the women who didn't want the right to vote, the reason why they didn't want the right to vote was because they didn't want to have to be entered into the draft.
yeah, I know that. I know all those different types of arguments. It's just now it's like I don't even know about the draft. Like I don't even know. I don't know. I haven't seen a whole lot in like the draft, but in my eyes, yeah. I mean, I guess in this case, we could have it to where like people do have to mandatory sign up for draft. Maybe everyone mandatorily sign up for the draft, but I don't see us even needing a draft in the future, really.
Yeah. Well,
I don't
I
think
guess playing off that, what do you think about like the whole wokeism coming into American culture and all that, and then also bleeding into the military and stuff like that now?
I think we're gonna have a lot of agreements here, maybe some disagreements. I think that the problem, I think Destiny talks about this a lot, so I'm probably going to be repeating a lot of what he says, but I think he's very true about it. I think the problem is also, there's another thing here that I'm probably going to add, but I think that like a lot of people have this problem with making arguments or basically like whenever you hear something like as like a leftist, especially on a college campus, and you don't like it, you can say the person's racist or homophobic and walk away, and you don't actually have to engage with their point. But the problem is that it creates really dull minds. It creates it to the point where it's like these really easy arguments. Like if I were to ask you like, why isn't this bad? You should be like, oh, this is bad because this. But like instead of that, you just be like, oh, you're a piece of shit. I'm not going to talk to you. But then you never have the argument for why incest is bad, so you never really know. But
for anybody who didn't hear that, he's saying incest. Is that what you said?
Yeah. What did I say?
You said really fast.
Okay. Anyways, yeah, no, like especially things that are like probably easy slam dunk topics and like certain like racist points where people are like, oh, you're racist for this. It's like we're kind of like pushing those people out when we're not getting those arguments in controlled environments. We're like college campuses, so we're not finding reasons for why those are bad. So let's say I was just a random college kid, I have no opinions on a college campus, and I'm just going around and I hear all these things like, oh, these people's like opinions are racist, so we don't talk about that, you know? But then later down the road, I'm like 25, 26, and I hear Ben Shapiro talk these points, which he does say some stuff sometimes it's kind of like crazy. I may hear that and be like, maybe he is right. Maybe they didn't want to talk about it because he's right, you know? Instead of hearing why they're wrong, I don't have any reason to think that they're wrong, you know?
And then it also gives the other side ammunition to go, well, he's so right that they don't have a comeback for it.
Exactly. Like Andrew Tate. It's like, why not just say why Andrew Tate's wrong instead of just banning him from the platform?
Because he's right.
But for Andrew Tate, dude, that guy, for like, I don't know if you want to go into all the legal stuff. He doesn't look like he's in a good situation.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't want to talk about it if you don't know a lot.
Yeah, I do know a lot. I mean, I know quite a bit. I've heard a lot of people say, like, you probably won't like this, but I heard a lot of people say that, like, the U.S. Embassy is also involved in it.
The U.S. Oh, well, it wouldn't surprise me because I'm assuming that some of the people probably did come from America, like in his little cam show, whatever thing had going on. And a lot of his old videos, and you can say that these are just him playing a character, him joking around. He said a lot like, I had women come in. He explained the method. There's like the lover boy method, whatever they talk about. And the idea is that he was doing things like he said, oh, I said I took away like half their salary and said it was taxed, but really it wasn't taxed or something. Or like he said, like half time he was like, sometimes I would make them like get paid in Bitcoin, and it would make it so that like there's no tax. You know, you say things like this that are like maybe he's playing a character, maybe he isn't. But if they were to have any evidence come in that was like, hey, he was doing these things, or the hits that said, hey, he was in these areas, he had these people doing these things, and they didn't want to do it, or like he maybe there's some evidence showing that he did these things. They have a clear motive in those videos. Whether he was saying they were jokes or not, he explained his methods and he said like, this is how you do it, you know? So they could easily pull the motive from there. So as long as they get evidence from somewhere else.
Yeah, which I just heard that they had some signed affidavits coming in that.
Yeah, there's like 6 or so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. I have no idea. But from the sounds of it, it seems like he put himself in the worst position he possibly can.
How so? Like
just becoming because how he explained his method. Like if I did something wrong or if I was doing those things, I wouldn't talk about that at all. I would just talk about like my opinions. I wouldn't say like, this is how you do it. This is how you know.
Do you think he's a dumb person or do you think he's smart?
I don't think that he's stupid. I think in the moment he was probably just saying stuff he wasn't really like thinking. I don't think he's a very like dumb person though. He can definitely hold his ground in like debates, and he can talk about like his own like he has a full world that's like conceptually like doesn't have any misconceptions about it. There's no misunderstandings there. Like I'm never gonna get him with an easy like, oh, you just misunderstood this. You know, whenever I have to argue them, I have to argue my worldview versus his worldview and why mine's better. I can't just say like, oh, you're wrong about this data or something.
Do you wonder why that he? Do you ever wonder why he became so popular?
It's in my eyes, it's probably because I really have to think about this because I have a full thing on this, but I haven't written it down in a while. So I think that
Just in general.
yeah, I think he's a reaction to how men are kind of treated in a society, and I think that you're obviously gonna like be saying that, but like I think that even though I think a lot of his stuff he says is crazy or maybe wrong, I think that because there are these arguments that aren't being talked about in society, I think that he's like the outcome of that. He's this guy that comes out and says like, I don't give a shit, I want to do this. And he says some crazy arguments that people probably shouldn't listen to, but he's the only one saying those things. And nobody's like having a firm argument about why he's necessarily wrong. Like I like how he goes on Piers Morgan and stuff like that. And Piers Morgan has some decent takes against him. Like, hey, maybe you shouldn't think this. Hey, maybe you shouldn't think that. But like, there isn't that vote like that point from the left that's like, hey, he's wrong here because this doesn't make any sense, or this is actually worse for our society if you run like this, or hey, this doesn't help your life. You know?
Yeah, I think the reason why he got so popular was because there really is nowhere. I don't want to say nowhere. I would say it's a very similar thing to like Jordan Peterson getting popularity, Joe Rogan getting popularity, is because there's very few places you can go to in today's culture that are going to affirm strong male characteristics.
Yeah.
So a lot of things are like beating down on that. And yes, he is the reaction of the culture yearning for something that's strong.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that he even though again I wouldn't follow him in like everything he said because I think a lot of the stuff he says is pretty. It's very over.
Do you like it on an entertainment value?
Yeah, I think that a lot of his like debates and stuff like that are pretty cool. It's pretty funny. Like he makes a bunch of jokes, but I think that I don't think he has a great audience control. I think a lot of his audience takes his stuff and really runs with it and says like people like I think that like for like his whole like Hustlers University stuff, like he says like if you buy my Hustlers University thing, it's like a thing for you to go and like communicate with people, all this stuff. I think that people buy that thinking that they're going to become like Andrew Tate or that they should be like Andrew Tate, and if they don't become like Andrew Tate, they're failures.
Do you know what I think? Do you know what I think? This is what I think about Hustlers University. I think if you're dumb enough to pay for it, you deserve it. That's my honest belief. Like if you're dumb enough to think that that's gonna make you like that, then you deserve the consequence of believing that almost. Because like I look at that and I necessarily like when I first heard him I was kind of like kind of too strong. But then I had the same feeling for Trump too. Like he's way too strong. And then it's kind of like, you know what? It is kind of fun to see a bull go through a china shop. It is kind of fun to see shit just being smashed.
It is, but the problem is when that entertainment value, like especially for Trump, it's like I think that Trump is more than just entertainment. I think that when the entertainment becomes like a sense of like it's causing certain people to have certain views and it's causing like a social shift in like maybe like America or like it's causing like for example like Trump, you can say like he's entertainment value, but there's a lot of things that Trump did that like I would disagree with. I don't want to get into a Trump debate.
Yeah,
but like that was just more than entertainment, you know?
Oh yeah, I totally agree. But I think for me too, or from my perspective, it's kind of just like go learn more shit then. Stop being so stupid. Yeah. And I've told like close friends that too. Like you guys, like I've been sitting in a room and everyone's like, Trump is, you know, I'll just use Trump for an example. Like Trump is so great, so awesome. I'm like, I just want to play the other side because I'm like, not really. Like, and I try not to be like be more like me type person.
Yeah.
But I'm like, go and find out some other people who you agree with who disagree with him. Or go have some adjacent points so you're not like, oh my gosh, Tom Brady is the best quarterback who ever lived. If you say anything, he is pretty damn good. But like, if you say anything bad, like he can't do no wrong type thing. That's where I start really getting irritated.
He can have a bad game.
Yeah, I get so irritated when people are. This is just the thing, and this is kind of like one of my ethos, is stop being a fan of other people and start being a fan of yourself.
Yeah, it's like that's a good way of putting it. Yeah,
And because I see that all the time, and it kind of frustrates me.
it's like a Trump derangement syndrome. Some people think
Yeah.
that Trump does everything wrong. I think there's a sense of people on the other side that think Trump can do everything right.
Yeah,
and I think that's
they're both annoying.
Yeah, like,
Because you can't okay. The other thing, and I'll say this, if you believe Trump derangement syndrome is a real thing, Trump agreement syndrome has to be a real thing too. The opposite has to be true.
those people have to exist.
Yeah.
And, those
Exactly. And that shit just annoys me, and I can't stand that. But with all that type of stuff being said, if anyone else has some points to bring up on, Twitter, social media as a whole, and, maybe women, Andrew Tate type stuff, put them in the chat and we can go over it. But
Yeah.
I'd say it'd be a good point to kind of move on to Second Amendment type stuff. And
Yeah. A quick thing on the FBI. I know you wanted to kind of mention that. I don't think that we probably don't agree, or we probably don't disagree too greatly. Or if we do disagree, there's probably nowhere where we can be like you probably think something happened because you see this certain thing going on. There's probably nothing that I can grapple with in terms of that would change my mind. I think that we're not disagreeing on evidence. I think we're disagreeing on what happened with the FBI scenario.
Trump fired Mattis, no bueno.
Yeah.
He's talking about the
That.
it was the general, the Marine general.
I remember. Yeah.
See, Michael can disagree with him too.
Yeah, I don't think that. I don't think that you guys are ever and whenever I argue with you guys about Trump, I don't think you guys are having these crazy you love Trump or anything. I just think that I think Trump was a bad president. I think he was super he did a lot of really, really bad things.
Okay, hold on. Let me pause you right there for a hot second.
I don't want to get
No, that's fine. I'm not going to go into an argument.
Yeah.
That's kind of the reason why sometimes I like him. It's almost like liking the villain in a movie. Sometimes a movie like Bane, right?
This is a weird. Okay.
But you know how some people are really into Bane.
Yeah,
the Batman,
the bad guy. Yeah,
the Batman villain, and that's part of the reason why I even started to, I wouldn't say like Trump, maybe enjoy him a little bit, is because I'm you know what? I'm gonna be on the dark side. Darth Vader is pretty fucking cool.
Yeah. I think that a lot of the stuff he says is super awesome. This idea that he's going to go into the White House. His narrative when he first came in 2016, that was it gave so many fucking emotions. It was insane, He came and he said, I'm going to drain the swamp. I'm going to get rid of career politicians. I'm going to wipe these things out. He had these grand narratives. And I think that's what people grasp onto.
All right, let me ask you this. This is just a fun question. Do you think that when a president comes into the White House and they have all these statements that they make, and I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, do you think that there is somebody who comes in and goes, here's what really goes on, here's how things kind of work actually? You can't really do some of that stuff.
Yeah, I think a president has to kind of do that, because if I'm going
no. Yeah. I'm asking if you think there's some shadowy figure, maybe part of government, I'm not saying it's the Illuminati, but someone comes in and goes, okay, this is how this is kind of going to work.
What do you mean, tell the president how they're going to do their stuff?
I don't want to say tell the president how they're going to do their stuff, but
I don't. By the way, I'm going to completely disagree if there's no something going, because if you're going to grasp for the whole hand in the jacket type stuff.
No. My data is every single president says I'm going to do X, Y, and Z,
and it doesn't happen,
and it never happens.
I think
Obama, we're pulling out of the Middle East, we're getting out. He blows up kids.
Yeah, I think that.
And I know that's a talking point, but.
I think that in some ways presidents do this, and I think in a way they know that they're not going to get that. But if I were going into if I were going to go buy a car, this car's $40,000, or they price it at $45,000. I want it for $40,000. I'm not going to go in there and be I want this. How about I pay $40,000? I'm going to say I'm going to pay $30,000 for this car. I'm going to say the biggest shit. So when I get in there, we get something done.
Touche.
I think that. I think that as the public, it's difficult to kind of comprehend. It's it seems like they're lying to us. They may not be. They may be. But the idea is
they're most definitely lying. They're politicians.
No, yeah. But in a way, that's how they negotiate. That's how it works. If they say that they're going to, we're just going to do some really basic stuff. We're just going to change these exact things. They're not going to get those exact things. But if they say we're going to get this crazy shit, they're going to get those things that we want. So, yeah, I think it's shitty though. Whenever to say if you hear a president say they're going to do things, because Trump even said things I'm going to get rid of the entire U.S. debt if I get 8 years, and he had 4 years and he added the most U.S. debt to the economy ever.
Yeah.
So it's it's difficult to like, I don't know. I think it's also difficult because if you're making promises, you don't know what it's going to be like when you get into the White House. You don't know whether or not you're going to get the majority in like the House, Senate. You're not going to know like what opposition you're facing to. So, yeah.
Did you want to say something else about the FBI?
I think that we're just going to probably have disagreements for how it was probably run. Because I think that there genuinely were like some things that were tossed up in the air, like whether or not Hunter Biden was mentioned in the meeting. I don't think he was. I think there's it sort of shows that it probably wasn't, but maybe. I don't know what you think about the 2016 Russian collusion. I think that was the reason for the FBI going in and talking to Twitter. But you're probably going to say it's because they know about the Hunter Biden laptop story and they want to censor that. I don't think there's any way we could like rationalize those 2 points.
There's no way we could ever actually really know either.
I think that we have a good idea. I think that my thing is that I think that you're probably making more assumptions than me in terms of
what I'm saying. What I constantly ask myself, and I know you would disagree with this, is am I being told the truth or am I being told the truth?
Yeah.
Kind of like, are they giving me something or are they telling me an actual truthful statement? And that's where I have a really hard time. And that is total gray area. And I'm trying not to be Mr. Conspiracy Theorist, Illuminati. I don't like to be that person.
Yeah.
Because and I'll just use this. I have that, sort of engineering brain. Like I need to see beginning, middle, end. I need to see data, hypothesis, and this is the best.
You need to see at least two people who don't have the same like ideas or motives come to the same point.
Yeah, and my brain wants that.
Yeah.
But a lot of the times, the only thing we really get is we get end result, and it's very difficult to work its way back to the beginning because it's just people. It's people involved.
Yeah, and you have to make assumptions rather than.
And you kind of have to. And so I always just ask myself, I'm like, are they like, is this something like the whole, like, like lawyers speak? Have you ever heard people, there's a really cool YouTube short I watched the other day. I probably should have saved it, but it was a person, two people sitting there, and I guess the husband was like a lawyer or something like that. And they're like, tell me you want to fire me in business speak. And they'd say like, we're going to relieve you of your position. And, so like the business way of putting everything, tell me, I want to hire a new person because I can't do all this work by myself.
Yeah.
And they'd come up with this business way of saying things. And lawyers do the same thing too.
Yeah.
They like, what was it? For instance, I have there's some big trial going on recently. Destiny posted a video about it.
Trial for
some rapper shot another rapper, something like that.
Okay.
And anyways, there was Destiny was reacting to a debate between one of the fresh and fit guys talking to Hassan. And I always listened to that.
Yeah, I remember that they were just like saying crazy shit.
Yeah, they're just going back and forth. But the lawyer for one of the witnesses said like, this witness previously said this and they were lying and they can't really talk about it because they've had a death in the family and something else, and they're something about their emotions not being right. They put it in lawyer speak. And the first thing that went through my head, and call me like a pessimist or whatever it is like, are they really feeling not up to this because there was a death in the family? Or is that a scapegoat? Is that a way of getting around things? Is that a way of saying, my pulling on heartstrings so that my witness doesn't have to take the stand type thing? And I don't even know if that person took the stand or not, but it's like, I think the same thing when government tells me this, is that really the truth? Are they pulling on heartstrings or pulling on whatever emotion or whatever thing to try and make me look the other way, or just, believe their narrative of the story just to move on? And maybe it's, I don't know. I don't necessarily think it's some big grand conspiracy theory type thing. And, to persuade all these people into believing this or that. It probably has some if there is some sort of malfeasance going on or whatever, there probably is some logical thing. Like, we don't want riots in the streets, so just say X, Y, or Z, so we don't have that. Try and protect, the country as a whole. So yeah, it is really just difficult with the whole ordeal, and hopefully, going back to Twitter, hopefully Twitter releases before they go bankrupt, all the information that they have.
Or yeah, just some new information, something we haven't seen before.
Yeah.
That'd be super awesome.
And maybe some more details of how that information is said. Oh, one thing I was going to ask you about the Twitter stuff. Do you think that in the middle, because this is my logical thinking, is in the middle of the court case for Elon to buy Twitter, if there was anything damning information, how easy would it have been to get rid of that? Because if you're a smart person, again, if you're a smart person and you don't want to be caught and you were doing something wrong, you would try to hide it so that no one would ever find out to begin with. So maybe more having in-person conversations rather than on Slack channels or other stuff like that. But if you have 3 months until he gets control of the company, and they kind of knew he would because that's the way the court case is going, do you think that they could have like destroyed some of the information, got rid of, I mean, Hillary Clinton bleached bit, destroyed servers, all that type of stuff?
For the Hillary emails, she sat through a lot of hearings, and there was a lot of stuff on that. Nothing came from that. And I don't know if it was because, I don't think it was because there was like no information. I think that they sort of said like Hillary is pretty innocent when it comes to this email stuff. Like I don't think it was like something where I was like, so this is completely up in the air. The emails could be something completely dangerous. Like maybe, but I don't think it was like O.J. Simpson. Like she got away with something, you know?
I don't necessarily think she got away with something, but
maybe there was something there. My thing
okay, well, she was training interns to smash phones with hammers. Like if you're not hiding, okay, this is just the logical step, and I know this has been said a million times for both sides or whatever side, but it's like if you're not trying to hide anything, why wouldn't you just throw it away? Why do you have to smash it with a hammer?
What if it was because they were like smashing it so that certain people didn't get a hold of certain information? Because they have that the U.S. is very secretive about every single, like they don't allow.
Okay, well then show me the documentation where the U.S. handed down to her saying have your intern smash these phones. Like I can play the same game you played, and there isn't. So we just have to go on assumptions and hope that these people had all of our best interests at mind. And that's the same thing with Twitter. It's like, am I gonna grant if there was damning information or whatever? Am I gonna grant them, you know, good integrity that they weren't gonna delete something if they even did anything wrong?
Well, my thing is that there's many people working at Twitter. It's not just this one conglomerate, this one hive mind.
Many individuals.
And I don't know if you've ever like went on like worked on certain things like project and stuff, like especially when they talk about like meeting minutes and meeting notes and all these different things. It's very difficult to just take everything that's incriminating and just delete it all at one time. It's not like there's like a search incriminating evidence, delete, you know?
Yeah, I know.
There's going to be traces of it everywhere, like in every single thing they do and like random folders.
If you weren't smart about it in the beginning.
Yeah. And my thing is that if it is there, they might find it. Maybe they just haven't found it yet. But my thing is like, I don't think there was really anything there that was like super crazy bad.
Yeah, I don't really necessarily think there was anything super crazy bad. I think it was gray area stuff.
Yeah.
I think it was.
Yeah, like how Twitter ran the story is pretty, like you can argue that they probably shouldn't have banned the Hunter Biden laptop story, but
then again, I can see their reasoning why, and you know their slighted bias of hey, maybe let's try and find a. I think the words they said, let's try. I think the conversation where it was going back and forth was we really don't have grounds to ban this, and then and you can correct me if I'm wrong because you read more about it. I'm just going from memory, but from the way that they were like almost trying to find a reason, like a shit we talked about it earlier, like a rule that was broken.
Yeah, the hack materials policy.
Yeah. So and that's kind of what they came. Well, we can say it was this, and that kind of is true, so we can use that to ban it.
The thing is, it did fall under the hack materials policy.
Sort of.
Yeah, like in a way. But the argument is that, well, I think there were links to like WikiLeaks on there or something. Like I think it related to WikiLeaks, and WikiLeaks is technically hack material. But then there are certain stories with WikiLeaks in other areas that weren't. But like I think the idea is like, I think that like because they did a whole investigation on this, they had like hearings, they had like the Yoel Roth affidavits, all this stuff. All this stuff is like in the main. I think it's like, hang on, I have a link to it in my actual document. They have this in investigations from like the FEC or the Federal Elections Commission. They have our committee, whatever it is. they have done an investigation and they've shown like there's no evidence here to show that Twitter was really being malicious or was being like purposely. It seems like they were just looking out for the best of their company and they were trying to make sure their profit margins weren't going to go down because they were allowing the story that was like dog shit, or like they were doing they had the best intentions.
Oh, and maybe even with Twitter, it was if we run this story, we know that our advertisers aren't going to like that because our advertisers are also Biden donors and we don't even want to mess with that. So it'd just be in our best interest to get rid of it. That's a possibility.
Okay, I'll give you that. Okay,
it is a possibility. Okay, so you wanted to talk about Second Amendment stuff too. That's also in the title. So
I haven't written anything on the Second Amendment, but I'm willing to. I think that we're going to agree a lot with the Second Amendment.
Probably.
But I think one thing that we could probably disagree with is like something like red flag laws. I think that's something that you will probably defend, and I probably will. And if you've read up about it, if you haven't,
Yeah, I know about red flag laws.
Okay,
they're unconstitutional.
I would argue whether or not they are, because like technically everything is anything to do with any sort of laws against the Second Amendment is unconstitutional.
Technically, yes.
Yeah. So I think that we have to find a median of like what can we consider to be unconstitutional, what can we not like consider to be unconstitutional. I think red flag laws, if worked with correctly, which it seems like they are, if they're used right, it seems like they make sense. It seems like they do their job. But
it seems like they would. But this is my thing with red flag laws is I know you potentially have a gun in Minecraft.
Yep.
And if I really didn't like you, I could possibly with my sweet social skills convince your brother and maybe a couple of your friends and maybe your cousin who got angry at you to call the police and say, hey, this person shouldn't have a gun because they are mentally unstable and they come and they take your gun. That's my thing with it.
Yeah, I think that's terrible. I think that if it's abused, there's problems. But many of the states that have red flag laws actually have laws in place to show that if you intentionally, or if there's any sort of intention, which people have been arrested for this, try and take away someone's guns by like going to a family member, going to this or going to, I think that even like a teacher or something, or like someone in your school can do that. Like if I have a teacher and they think, because they obviously they interact, like teachers interact with kids all day, you know, like especially kids who are like under 18. If they have an idea that there's guns or something in the house that they probably shouldn't have, then they can go out and say these things. But if they intentionally do it to take away their guns, like in like they don't have like any reasoning behind it, then they go to jail for that. That is something that happens.
Okay. Do you believe in the I don't remember the name of the guy who thought of this thing, but do you believe it's better for 100 guilty men to go free than for one innocent man to suffer?
Yeah, I get that idea, but
I'm asking if you believe in that.
I don't really think so. I think that if it was 1,000,000 to 1, I'd be fine with 1,000,000 people going to jail for the one innocent person going to jail, because I think that's how our system runs now.
Okay, I'll take that. I think that
we've decided where that number is, though. If it's like 2 to 1, it's like I don't think so. I think that's pretty shitty. But if it's like 1,000,000 to 1, it's like okay, that makes sense. I think we have to find that happy number. You know?
Yeah.
Well, we're in the middle.
I don't think that when it comes to red flag laws, I think it just gets too iffy, and it gives, I think, too much power and control to a government entity.
Well,
and there's already been a lot of issues with this already that from states that have implemented it. Cops showing up. I think there's already people who died from it. Not even just be put in prison, but people who've died because the cops show up. We're going to take your guns away because of this law that says you're mentally unstable. And a lot of the times, if I'm not mistaken, a lot of the times it's people who are in a divorce or getting a divorce. This happens. And there's one where one dude like suited up in armor, and I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I just went nuts. Yeah, because he heard it. They're going to take his guns away.
Also go hand in hand with no knock raids, aka the police knocking down your door and raiding your house without announcing themselves.
I don't know if it's. I mean, maybe they do. Like maybe they have like no knocks.
You do not know what a no knock warrant is?
I know what it is where they don't knock. So the idea is there's something in the house. Like for example, if they have a certain like a drug operation going on and they have the ability to destroy that stuff within a matter of like a couple minutes, which is them knocking on the door, then they don't want to have that like knocking. They want to make sure that they just get in the house and make sure they secure that evidence. So the evidence is destroyed. The same way it's like if they have guns and stuff, maybe a no knock warrant is maybe in place. But my thing is that I think that with with the red flag laws in place, we can go through and we can look at the data to see like how many of these are intentionally used wrong, how many of these cause like deaths or cause issues, and then like how many times have we taken away guns and it's worked perfectly, which we will never really know if it actually saved people's lives or not. But
So Michael just said, basically they believe they will be in
like the police will
immediate
be in
danger if they
danger.
announce themselves.
Yeah, because the idea is this person is someone who's supposedly mentally unstable and supposedly has weapons, you know? So I think it's I think that like
I think that if it's the government's goal to have less people with guns in the country, they will use red flag laws to their advantage to take more guns away.
that's the argument that I don't like though.
I know you don't like that.
I want the argument to be around whether or not red flag laws work. You know, I don't want it to be
Right.
around like the government's using this as a stepping stone because I don't. I think that if it like let's say red flag laws were this perfect thing and they actually reduce murders or like certain things like mental issues or like suicides maybe because suicides with guns supposedly there's all that whole debate. But like let's say that if the red flag laws did work and they did lower murders and suicides and things like that, then I want the argument to be like not just like, oh, this is a stepping stone, we shouldn't allow it. It should be like, well, this is something that's positive that we can both agree on both sides.
Do you agree in doctor assisted suicide?
What?
Medical assisted suicide?
Like euthanasia?
Yeah.
I don't I haven't done a whole lot of like research on like the debate, but if I were to right now if I were to make my opinion, I probably wouldn't be okay with it. I'd probably be against it because I think it's difficult. I think it's a very difficult scenario but if there is that decision to be made, I think it should be made by the family, not by the doctors.
I think that the red flag laws thing, it's to me it's just a slippery slope, and I know that's not a great argument for you, but what I think of is at a bare minimum, put it at the barrier to entry instead of in the middle. That's my biggest thing is like if you're going to create some barrier to firearms ownership, don't put it in the middle of owning the firearm, put it at the beginning, because at least then that can be, it's like, I know it's a sense of gatekeeping, which we already kind of have a sense of gatekeeping a little bit, but at least it's at the beginning and not in the middle.
Yeah.
It's like once I buy a house and they come back to me and tell me, oh yeah, your financial stuff really didn't work out, so we're going to take the house then away from you after I've already bought it and I already got cleared for it.
Well, they're not taking away the guns forever. They're taking them away until
That's what they say though.
Until you've proven that you go to court, you have like a certain like judge, and they judge whether or not you're deemed mentally stable enough.
Yeah, but that's how it works in a perfect world.
I think, but no, like, all right. So, do you think that if I look up right now, red flag laws, people getting their guns back, do you think it's going to be like nobody's getting their guns back?
No, I don't think it's gonna be nobody's getting their guns back.
Well, yeah, but so my thing is like, I think that like we're making assumptions that it's just not going to work or that there's going to be these issues when it's like this has been implemented in certain states and it has some pretty good effects.
What states?
I looked this up. I think it was 6 months ago. So let's look up red flag law effects.
No. I want to know first what states have red flag laws on the books.
Okay, red flag laws.
Michael said, which
19
is
states have red flag laws. Specifically, it's basically the entire West Coast, in Wyoming, Washington, California, Nevada. It looks like it's either Arizona or New Mexico, one of those. Whatever the square state is. I don't know my states. Hawaii has them. Florida, that's crazy. I didn't know Florida had them. That seems almost insane.
I didn't know Florida had
And
them.
basically anywhere in the entire Northeast except for Maine and New Hampshire. New Hampshire doesn't have them.
Yep, because New Hampshire's a free state.
New Hampshire's wild. I don't know. New Hampshire's back and forth.
Live free or die.
Okay. But yeah, no, that's I think that we should look into like those states, see like, hey, how do they work? Maybe what areas do they work best in? You know, like if it's like a city, maybe it works better than like that in like a rural area. I think that the best thing to do is to look at like, are they working right now or are they not working?
So my thing is,
You know who actually pushed for red flag laws? Trump.
Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
He
Again,
did.
I don't agree.
Yeah. Trump was terrible when it comes to guns. Like he was against guns.
The butt stock thing, all that crap.
He passed more legislation against guns than Obama and Biden combined.
I know.
Crazy.
So my thing is, when it comes to the Second Amendment, if I truly believe that the Second Amendment is a fundamental right as a human, that having the ability to defend yourself, you have to have you know the saying. It's the great statements, great statements of fact need great evidence or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. If you're gonna make a great claim, it takes a great amount of evidence.
Yeah. So my thing is same thing, but with rights. If you're gonna try and
Yeah.
legislate a right that is in our Constitution, then you have to have some insane amount of data that proves to me that this thing is definitely needed. And I don't have all the arguments off the top of my head on red flag laws, but I think
Yeah, I
that
don't either.
there are plenty of downsides to them also.
Yeah, I can agree. Like the idea is this is obviously there's going to be people who misuse the system. There's going to be problems, and I think that those people should be severely punished.
And then the other thing is, I think that one of the differences just in general between me and you is, and I'm trying not to be total anarchist person here, but like I think that more problems would be solved with less control and less overhand
Yeah, yeah,
than stuff being put into place.
yeah.
Because to me, like it's like you reach a point where you implement so many laws that there's just so many that it muddies the water to things progressing forward, when I think that more should be done, like more steps should be taken backwards. Like I'm in big okay, I'll meet you in the middle here, right? I think that number one, I wouldn't want it to be federal, if anything, not federal. It would have to be a state by state thing.
Absolutely, yeah. I think
And I think that it would have to be a sunset clause.
with sunset clause.
If I'm not mistaken, a sunset clause is when you put a law into effect, and that law will go out of effect in a certain amount of time.
So it's only just like a trial.
Yeah, it's like a trial run for a law.
That's awesome.
And it's a certain amount of time. And I think more laws should be done that way because culture changes, time changes, and there are some things in government where I'm like, they should never change ever. Like some laws, some amendments just never change. Free speech, it should never change. It should always be free. So I don't think free speech needs a sunset clause in it. But for certain newer laws, things with culture changing and our world changing and technology changing, I definitely think that a lot of laws should have those types of clauses in them where they look at them in 5 years and 2 years or whatever in 1 year, and they have people come in, really study it, really focus on it, and say, did this work or did this not work? If we're going to make this great claim, is there enough data that pushes us over? Have people or a set of judges or a state Supreme Court look over it and did this really work? Yes or no? Are we going to keep it? Yes or no? So I'll meet you there. I would meet you there, but in general, I would not support red flag laws just off the fact of it being misused. New Hampshire is the definition of libertarian. It's purple. Yeah, well, dude, New Hampshire, I am hanging out for Hillshire County over there. They are that's a sweet county right there. Mike, do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't know anything about New Hampshire. My family moved way before we even.
Hillshire County is I remember me and Scotty hanging out all the time. It's like some of my earliest memories. Hillshire County is like where like Ringe, New Ipswich, maybe Jaffrey, Keene, like that area. It's like solid red for like the past 100 years or something like that.
Yeah, I'm sure that all the actual like the blueness probably comes from those big cities like Concord or like maybe around Lake Winnipesaukee or something.
Concord, Nashua, the big epicenters. The one thing, New Hampshire,
Cheshire
County. Sorry.
Oh,
Hillshire County might be the one next to it or something. But anyways, the one thing you guys don't do got is a drug problem. So have fun with that one, Michael. Suck it.
yeah.
But as far as okay, let me ask you this. So I gotta push back on you.
I can make some if you want to like argue some like crazy.
No, I want to do something better.
What?
I want to push back on you a little bit and I want to know your story a little bit because a year ago
I was definitely conservative. I remember, I think around...
No. A year ago, I had asked you, because we had talked about guns a couple times, and you were kind of it seemed like you were uninterested. Like, I'm not the type of person. I don't know. I wouldn't really want one. I don't really need one for self-defense. I don't think I'd ever need one for self-defense, which guns are not for. Oh crap, there's stuff going on. I might need a gun to defend myself because there's a high probability. It's when your life is on the line. It doesn't matter if it's a 0.001% probability of your life being on the line, but if your life is on the line, you better hope you have the right tool to defend your life. And that's kind of like my view on it. But it seems to me like, from my perspective, talking to you like a year ago, you more or less, not that you maybe didn't believe in the Second Amendment, but you kind of stepped into your right of the Second Amendment a little bit more. And I want to know if there is a story there, what that story is.
So,
if there was a mind change or a belief change in there, what is it?
my thing was that about a year ago, I liked guns, but shooting them wasn't really that big of a deal to me. Like, I like learning about them. I think that in terms of engineering, guns are the most like explosive. That's like the coolest shit, because that's the one time where you have like an explosion, a controlled explosion, propel this metal object at like crazy speeds. You know?
See the videos I was posting earlier on Snapchat?
You're shooting some guns, I think.
Dude, I think we were only shooting up to like 400 yards, but it is a whole different story when you're pulling the trigger on something far away, and there's like a ping like a second later, and you see it hit, and then you hear the ping of the steel. Dude, that probably one of the greatest moments of my life so far. It was awesome.
Yeah. Have you never really shot like crazy?
Long range? No.
Wow.
I've shot like up to 100 meters, maybe 150, but shooting 400 with like a super high powered rifle with like a massive $1,000 worth like scope on it.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Dude. Yeah, no, I don't know how much I've necessarily changed. I just like guns more. I want to buy guns more. My main argument against guns just simply comes from the fact of like, you know, like red flag laws. Like, you want to make sure that you're making sure that people who are supposed to have guns, or people who don't know how to use guns, or people who are mentally not stable to use guns, take the guns out of their hands, but make sure that the people who are using guns correctly, make sure that they have their guns. I guess
armed society is a polite society.
Yeah. I think that the left, and this is one of the main things that I think I disagree with the left on, is that they need to kind of just give up on the whole like gun stuff, because right now they're pushing for like bans of AR-15s. They ban bump stocks, which that doesn't do shit. Like, they're banning like how you hold the rifle, like as if you're like it's just none of that stuff makes any sense to me. I don't see any data. I don't see any like studies that show like this is actually like reducing murders by a crazy amount. It doesn't seem like it's doing that. It seems like they're pushing these wild narratives instead of pushing the cool stuff like maybe red flag laws or like background checks, which Trump pushed, by the way, which I think that was one thing that Trump actually sort of did right, was like pushing like those things instead of banning these like specific things, the attachments to the guns, these pieces of plastic, you know?
No, but I'm asking for your kind of personal story. I'm asking? Well, I'm more asking you, like, did you have any mindset change from not owning or never owning to now wanting to own more of?
Yeah.
And what did that look like for you personally? Because I'll give you my kind of quick and dirty story. I grew up around guns. My dad was more of a air rifle type person, which is, if you know him, is just
those aren't even considered firearms, right? Like,
no.
Or they
just
are
like pellet guns.
Yeah.
But he was like just into that stuff. He was never really into like hunting big game. He was always more like small game type stuff, and air rifles. And he had like a $800 air rifle, and that's what we would always shoot. And but we would shoot all the time, BB guns, pellet guns, and he had CO2 powered pellet guns and stuff like that, CO2 pistol. But he was never into like rifles. I remember as a kid, like, man, I really want you to buy me a 22, and he kind of just wouldn't. So I don't know if there's like a weird story with that or anything. But anyways, I grew up, got older, and it was really funny because my dad is the one who bought me my first gun when I was 17. He bought me a pistol. And that kind of started the whole thing. We really didn't have a place to shoot. Yeah, so I kind of just shoot every once in a while. And then as I grew up and kind of stepped more into who I am and being a man and all that type of stuff, I always knew that I liked them. I always knew that I loved shooting, but it wasn't until I was older and could like do that stuff for myself that I really like stepped into it more, started looking into it more, learning more about them, aside from video games and movies and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it just opened up this whole new world that's way interesting and super cool. And, there's a million different rabbit holes that you can go down it's just really fun for me.
It makes playing video games even more fun.
Oh,
Because when you're shooting a gun in a game, it's like if you don't know anything about guns, you're just trying to kill the next guy or just play there. But if you're in the game and you see the gun and see how it works, all the different like reloads and animations, it's like it's cooler that way. Like it's so much more like visceral.
Yeah. And you understand a lot more.
Yeah, and like you put the compensator on the end of the gun or the silencer on the end of the gun, and it's like there's reason why that's happening. You know what's going on there.
Yeah, you know what it does and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, one statement you had told me is like you said I'd never buy a gun for self-defense. You said that walking out of my house one day.
I did.
So do you still believe in that?
I don't. I might now, I think. But I think at the time, I was like, I probably wouldn't buy a gun for self-defense because I didn't believe that, like, I was capable of, like, holding or shooting guns and stuff like that, which, I mean, I could have learned, but I didn't think it was as beneficial to me. But now I think that, like, genuinely, I think that buying a gun and defending yourself with a gun, if you're in, like, a city, if you're in, like, maybe not a city, maybe in, like, more of a rural area, I think it's almost necessary to have a gun. Like, I think it's really cool to have a gun, but I think that you have to make sure that you know how to use it, because if you don't know how to use it, the gun's fucking useless. You know.
And that's something that you also don't know if your only contact with firearms is video games or movies.
Yeah, if you only know about that and you don't want to take the time to actually like learn how to use a gun, buy like a bat or something.
I got a perfect story for you today.
Yeah.
Right? Probably 10 yards away from a 8-inch steel target.
Yeah.
So 8-inch steel target, 10 yards away, and I kept missing. Like over and over. I'm like, what? Like, I know how to shoot a gun. I know how to shoot pistol. And I kept missing over and over. And I had to aim like I was shooting my new SIG instead of my Glock. And the way the barrel and the sights are on the guns might just be a little bit different. And so, but from 10 yards away, a lot of people think like, oh man, you could like, if someone was coming at you, you could intentionally shoot them in the leg or something. It's like
you cannot do.
I was 10 yards away and I couldn't even hit an 8-inch steel target.
Yeah.
And I had to like really change my aim to hit it once because I shot like 10 times. And I was like, dang, like I'm like carrying this gun with me. If I needed it and someone was coming at me and I pulled this gun out and I was aiming like what I thought was center mass, I'd be probably missing them. Or I could very easily be missing them. And I was like, dang, that just really goes to show that like, I think that I am the 1,000,000% advocate for if you want to own a gun or you do have one, that you need to shoot it, you need to practice with it, and you need to understand it. It's not just like this thing that you have, oh cool, go play type thing, or hey, I'm gonna walk around with a gun on my hip because I'm defending myself, but I've never drawn it and I've never shot it. Stuff like that.
I don't like open carry. I think it puts you in a lot of bad spots.
I don't like open carry. I think it's stupid.
One thing is, I obviously have a Mosin like Nagant. It's like a big ass bolt action rifle. If someone breaks into my house, I think I'm more likely to just whip out the bayonet than to actually load that thing up with bullets. You know, but
keep it loaded.
I don't want to keep it loaded. No way.
I don't know if I'd keep a 100-year-old firearm loaded.
No, I need to buy a gun safe honestly for that.
Believe me, I need to buy a gun safe.
Yeah, I think that the problem is that if you're in the city, it's probably worse for you to have a gun because it's shittier. Because like just to go and shoot it, you have to go and spend a shitload of money at like different like shooting places, shooting ranges. I think that as soon as hunting season's over, as soon as like people open up on land, I think I'm going to be way more into guns and way more into going out and shooting. In terms of like defending myself with a gun, I think I might probably get a firearm. I might get a pistol. I think that it's.
Would you ever carry one? Like get your concealed carry permit?
I say I wouldn't, but I probably in like a year, if I like carrying it, I probably might get a concealed weapons permit and carry it on me. You know,
you should try it.
Yeah, I definitely think I should try it. Yeah,
I think that everyone should at least try it. And it's a whole nother avenue of training and learning that once kind of like, hey, I brought my rifle to the range at 50 meters and shot it. Might. This is a very strong might get boring, and this is another thing that another skill that you can open up and practice and stuff like that. That's why I really started because I started getting into like, I remember seeing like holsters being advertised and like that's kind of fucking lame type thing, like I'll just leave it in my glove box. But then I'm like, what's this deal with holsters? So I started like watching people. So I went and bought one, like a cheap, like $40 holster. And I started like practicing with it. And I'm like, man, this is actually kind of cool. Like there's speed, there's accuracy, there's handling, there's all that type of stuff. And it's just like a whole nother thing that you get to practice and like work like a whole nother game.
Yeah.
For instance, what did Michael say? Get a safe
Firearm
and
safety is the most important. Get safe and comfortable around guns, and then get to know how to use them as proficiently as possible.
yes, amen. I think if you're a gun person or you have guns, own guns, I think that has to be, you know, okay, for one, I think that people who don't know about guns or people who don't know people who own guns, they don't know that they actually are some of the safest people. Like there is a study out there that says people with their concealed carry permit are safer with guns than police are off duty with guns. So the people who have their CWP are more lawful with their firearms than off-duty police officers are with firearms.
Yeah.
That's a huge statement to make. That's pretty crazy, and that goes totally against what the common average person might think. Like they see police officer, or even I've heard it from Michael like a couple of times, and please don't get mad at me if I misquote you, Michael. But Michael said like people come to me like, oh, you were in the military, you must know so much about rifles and guns, and you must be so proficient. And I'm not saying Michael isn't a good shooter, but he's a very good shooter. But there, some people might come to him and be like, oh, what's the best round for, shooting 800 yards at, a 4-inch target? And he'd be like, I don't know. And they're like, well, you're in the military, you should know that. And he's like, no, like that's not what I trained for. That wasn't my thing. And he might know that, but it's like this thing of like, oh, these people just know everything. And a lot of the times, like I know some people who weren't in the military, weren't police, and they are super proficient with firearms and they are really good at shooting.
Yeah.
And one of them being Javen. Like Javen, I'm pretty sure killed a deer with his Mosin.
Yeah, I know. He goes hunting with that Mosin. It's
That's freaking cool.
yeah. Those iron sights on there are super accurate too. Most of the time.
And again, another. I was never a hunter growing up, but it's another avenue of firearms that would be really cool to know and get into that world. And I think we all could kind of do it, especially if you're a health conscious person, like getting into some, like if you're a meat eater, getting some meat that's not from a factory, and that you went out and shot yourself and you got it cleaned and it's more healthy for you. So that's like a whole nother avenue and lifestyle and thing that you can go down, and just gives you stuff to do with your life that's, I would say, somewhat beneficial. It's not just a hobby. It can it can give back to you. Like me going and play hockey. Like hockey is fun as a hobby, but it's not really going to give anything back to me.
Yeah.
To whereas being proficient in firearms, like I don't think there's going to be some big boogaloo going on anytime soon. At least I hope not. But I'm not necessarily training for that. But it's just, if I ever had to defend myself, I want to be at the highest skill level that I possibly could be at.
Yeah.
And on the if I want to start hunting and getting my own meat, that'd be really awesome too.
Yeah, no, it benefits you. It's not just something you're just dumping time into.
Yeah, time and money. Yeah.
I don't know if you want to. I don't know. You said you had some topics.
Yeah, I do.
I want to like get something that we completely disagree on. That we'd be like almost like shouting at each other. Because I want to get into like blood sports almost.
Okay. I got a couple.
All right.
So, and these you might not be so knowledgeable about, but I want to say I almost believe in them because they're fun.
Yeah.
One of them is giants existing in America.
Giants?
Yeah.
Like Sasquatches?
No, not Sasquatch. Like literal giants existing in America.
Okay.
And Atlantis and world travel. Like there was a time in history that people were more advanced than we think they actually were.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of different things. So, and I'll just give you I guess I'll go giants first. I just heard this one today and it was super fun. So I'm like, I'm going to bring that up. So one of them is there's a story of they were called the Paiute Indians, Native Americans.
Yeah.
And they have this long history. And there's a story of these Native Americans who they were always being attacked by this carnivorous, red-headed, giant people. And the Paiute Indians had a war with these people. They chased them into a cave, and they blocked off the entrances and lit it on fire. And then that's like their history. And then there's a girl from like the 1800s who wrote a history of her people, and she had that story also in there. And then there's some miners or something like that, some people who found a cave, and that was like blocked off and burnt, and that cave had big skeletons in it. And there's also many, many stories of, the Indian burial grounds, like the big mounds of those are not allowed to be dug up or touched. But 100 years ago, they were. And they were being excavated, and that supposedly there was like not giants like 50 feet tall, but like
9 feet tall people.
Yeah, 8 to 10 feet tall people in there. And supposedly there's news articles and stuff like this that were written about all these things, and I'm sure a lot of them could have been hoaxes. But what the Smithsonian would do is the Smithsonian would come along, they would, yes, give us those bones, we'll put them on display, and now they're nowhere to be found.
So people are just hiding them?
Supposedly.
I feel like
there's other people.
Why would they hide them though?
That's my thing. If they're fake,
you can't be like, oh, they're hiding them for some mysterious reason. Why are they hiding these things? But like, I feel like
because I think they're fake. But there has been a leak that has leaked before. This is in the Smithsonian and some of their archives. They have these giant bones, but no one really knows about them or where they come from or whatever.
like the workers have said, like there's just giant bones down. Okay.
And so there's all this stuff. There's all these stories of these giant people. There's also, Michael, if you read my mind on this, I'm going to be so mad. Missing 411, that one's really cool. If you never read about Missing 411, super interesting stories. Yes, I have watched the documentary. It's crazy. Supposedly they found giants in Afghanistan. So you went where I thought you were going to go. So this is really cool. This is why this story is fun. So there is a story, and I've heard this from a couple different firsthand. Well, it was secondhand. Someone who heard it from someone else. But there was like a special, like a Army Ranger, is either an Army Ranger or a Green Beret type guy. These guys got sent up to go and fight this Afghan way the hell out there, way out in the mountains. And they went and they supposedly killed this giant. And the giant also killed an American soldier with a spear until they shot it like, it was like 38 times or 42 times they finally killed it. And then they airlifted that giant to one of the bases to where there's eyewitnesses of people saying that a helicopter came in carrying something massive or carrying a giant or something like that. And there's a couple of people who said that story is true and they don't know why it never went anywhere. And so there's this whole, you can look it up, stories of the Afghan giant and U.S. Army soldiers killing this giant way out in the middle of the mountains, out in the middle of nowhere. And then there's also stories of Afghanis saying like, yeah, we always knew that there's a giant living out there in those caves. We just never bothered them.
So there's, in Afghanistan, there's these giants, and also in America?
No, just like one. There's like one giant that lives out in these mountains.
Yeah.
And there used to be these giants like hundreds of years ago that lived in Native America.
Yeah.
I'll use this example for you. Okay. And this is an example that I heard a long time ago, but I'm going to read Michael's comment first. Also, if you want to get spooky, look up stories about American troops seeing and hearing Soviet ghosts in Afghanistan. I have heard that story before. It's pretty creepy. But what do you think would happen? If in Blue Ridge, South Carolina, they started plastering all over the news that there was a grizzly bear on the loose. It was out. In the news, the police said, if you see this massive 1,000-pound grizzly bear, shoot it on sight.
Yeah.
What do you think would happen?
People would probably shoot the grizzly bear.
And then what would happen after that?
I don't know. Maybe they'd just be done with that.
Okay, what would happen to the person who shot the grizzly bear? They'd be put in the paper. Bubba saved the city. He shot the grizzly bear. Hoorah, yay, right? Let's say 100 years, 300 years ago, right? There is a small sect of people who are giants, and they harass the Native American people. And let's say the Native American people go and slay the giant or slay the dragon or whatever. They are lifted up as heroes because they do that, right? They save their tribe. And so if there were a small group of these people, they would have been hunted to extinction because these people are dangerous and there's more of this one than there is that one. Kind of a natural evolution type thing.
Yeah.
And these people die off and they bury them in mounds because they're, it's crazy. Also, there are stories of Cortez coming into America in the 1500s or into South America, and the natives bringing him femur bones that were as tall as him or up to his shoulders and stuff like that.
Just like huge legs.
Yeah, like femur bones, and he's seen supposedly giant skulls and stuff like that, big hands. There's been certain thumb bones that were found were like triple the size or double the size of a thumb. So I wanted to get your thoughts on if there's even a possibility in your mind that could be true.
All right, if we're doing the 1 to 10, I'm always probably going to be a 1 unless there's like something like they have these bones out there and like, hey, there's these massive ass bones, we don't know where they came from. Like I'm like probably like the least conspiratorial person you could possibly find. I don't know.
Do you not think the story is fun though? Like if that were true,
it's cool.
If you hear it, would you be like, you know what? I kind of want that to be true, because that would be kind of like, I'm the type of person that go like, there's nothing that spikes the dopamine in my mind more than something that goes, we always thought this was the way it happened.
Yeah.
This is actually the way that it happened.
Yeah, I think it's really cool whenever there's something that comes out that's like, we were just wrong about this. Like it shows us like we had this preconceived like notion in our mind to be like, this is what we always believe, but then there's just something there that we just missed. I think that's like super cool when that happens. I don't know. I don't know if you want to get into this really, but that happened kind of actually the other day whenever I was researching the COVID stuff or like the lab leak. There was so I sent you that report, right, about so like around 2021 October, we believe that COVID was specifically, it came from like a bat, and whenever we sent people over there to study, there was 8 teams in total. There was 4 teams that came back with like a low confidence that it probably came from a bat, and there was 1 team that was like moderately saying like, no, this was probably an accidental lab leak. And the idea is that we didn't really have the information. Now in 2022, I think it was around October, they had an interim report that said that based off like certain like what was it? It was super, super complicated, the actual report, but they had one line that said they strongly believe that it leaked from the lab. And it was crazy to me because people aren't really talking about it. There's like a bunch of news sources on it, but they aren't really like having like a big deal. Like this isn't like the greatest thing, Like here, I'll actually pull it up.
Wait. Why do you think it wouldn't be the greatest thing?
I think it's because it's not like it. If it like, so the idea is that they have this understanding that it probably wasn't genetically altered. This probably wasn't an initial thing that like they purposely did it. And there's also data showing that like it probably didn't really come from the lab. Like there's a good chance it didn't. But the idea is like, if it did leak from a lab, it's a really cool thing because that's like it changes our mind on like how we should go about like solving COVID or like like how we should like think about it. But in general though, I think it's also kind of, I don't think it should be like the biggest deal. I don't think it should be like this is like, because if we focus on it too much, we might be like, well, then we're blaming certain people for not talking about this or not talking about the lab leak.
See, that's where I think it is more advantageous for people to just kind of let it pass on in the news cycle than bring it up. But anyways, back to Giants. Yeah. If you can look this up, like Giants bones found, and there are so many stories of giant bones being found. Now, whether the bones themselves were real or not, it's like the equivalent of people saying, I found a Bigfoot footprint in the ground. They figured out there's some plaster casting. So I am very sure that there are stories like that. But then I want to see, give me the plaster casting and give it to somebody to look at. For instance, there's the story of, how the Russians have Hitler's head, her skull.
Oh yeah, like basically like after they killed him, they took his skull.
No, they didn't kill him. He killed himself.
Yeah, he killed himself, but they took the body and
it's in their museum.
They took Hitler's body's in a museum.
Not his body. I think a skull fragment. Or his skull fragment, because they supposedly shot himself. Then he had him and his girlfriend or wife, whatever, burned. And the Russians are the one who found them. So I think in one of the museums in Russia, there are his skull fragments or his skull are there. Until some biologists or whatever came and they studied the skull and they did DNA tests on it. They're like, it's not Hitler. And the Russians are like, okay, no more studying the skull.
Oh, they were just like, yeah, no more. Well, yeah, that's like that's probably just Russia trying to make sure they have like a cool tourist event
Okay,
that isn't. Yeah.
if Russia, again, I know this is just my bias, but if Russia does that, if their government does that, do you think that our government never does that, or certain
I
sects
think
or
there's.
fields?
I think that. I think there are certain things in our government that probably do cause like some sort of like there probably is some sort of like mischief like that. But the idea is, I think it's much lower of an extent than
Yeah, oh yeah, I
anything.
would agree.
And also, I think that we have a lot more like checks and balances in place to like like solve these things or show these things are happening. You know?
Yeah, okay, so that if you never read about the Finding Hitler type stuff, that's super interesting too.
Yeah, the South America they're talking about Argentina, I believe.
Yeah, Argentina, like big, massive things, and Hitler supposedly got away there, and
Mm-hmm.
there's eyewitness accounts supposedly and stuff like that. See, that shit's just cool to me. That Hitler actually did get away,
Mm-hmm.
and he lived his life out somewhere over here, and
Yeah.
it's interesting to me to where I know this again. This is a very bad bias, but it's like I almost want it to be true just because the story would be so cool,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why the TV shows are so big and stuff like that. But anyways, the giant thing is just super freaking interesting to me,
Mm-hmm.
and it plays into my kind of the whole dinosaur thing. Like I do
Mm-hmm.
think there were or could have been dinosaurs that walked around,
Yeah.
with people.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess my brain's wired a little bit differently because like I don't like those conspiracy theories. They don't like I say conspiracy theory now. That's like a negative term, but like I don't like that doesn't make me super excited to see that stuff. Like if there's some evidence, I'll definitely look into it and definitely read about it. And it could be pretty cool, but like that's not something that like blows my mind or something that I immediately attach to and I'm like gravitate towards or want to believe. Like I don't know. I guess I'm a little bit different. I don't know.
Yeah, that stuff doesn't get you going. It gets me going. Okay, what about Atlantis?
Atlantis, it's cool to talk about, but I've never really heard a like you said you had a story about it. What is the stuff they're talking about? Like what do they
So Atlantis is obviously this advanced city that supposedly there was, I think 9,000 years before Plato. Plato's heard the story from his grandfather, who was a traveler, who he heard it from. No, maybe it was 900 years before he left, or it's either 900 or like 5,000 years or something like that. I think it was 900 years before Plato's grandfather. He went to this tribe. He heard a story about Atlantis, and so a lot of people say like Atlantis didn't exist. It never existed. We don't know where it was, but Plato's grandfather gave him a description of what the city looked like. It was a city. There was 2 rings of land and 3 rings of water. It got covered by the sea, and then the sea came up, covered it, and then went away.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a place in the Sahara Desert called the Eye of the Sahara.
Mm-hmm.
It's way out in just the middle of absolute nowhere, and there's like 2 rings of possible land, 2 rings of water, and the whole area is covered in salt. So they think the ocean came up, covered it. There's some sort of massive catastrophic event that covered that area, and there's never been any excavation or anything like that because it's literally out in the middle of nowhere. Some guy actually went there who believes that it is Atlantis. He's like an explorer. He went there and he's like, I almost died just going there. Like just
Because trying to go out to the desert.
yeah,
Yeah.
just trying to get out there to that area.
Yeah, there's a bunch of those. Even like the Amazon is like that. Like we have no idea what's in the actual Amazon.
Have you heard of like the LiDAR stuff?
No, I haven't.
Do you know what LiDAR is?
No.
It's light radar. So pretty much what they do is they fly over jungles, and they send radar down.
Yep.
Well, they send light down, and the light can penetrate the canopy, and it can give you like a geometric pattern of like what the ground actually looks like.
Yeah.
And they found like 27 pyramids that had never been found before. They're totally just hidden
Yeah, it's like
by the jungle.
it's almost like a complete because they were just eaten by the jungle.
Yeah.
They've just been growing like crazy.
So they found all this new stuff
Yeah.
with LiDAR, and they've only like searched like 1% of like the Amazon so far, and maybe it wasn't 20, maybe it was like 5 or something, but
Yeah.
still very interesting, very cool
Yeah,
stuff.
that's awesome.
See, my thing is like, I dislike when someone comes up and says, we know X, Y, or Z. Because 100 years ago, they were saying, we know X, Y, or Z. For instance, this is the first thing that popped in my head. It's kind of bad, but like a lot of the, what are the people called? There's a word for it that thought that the races had different brain stuff.
Oh, it's phrenology.
Yeah, phrenology.
It's based off the skull shape. We think
Yep,
that certain
yep.
people were
Skull
smarter.
shape or indentions and stuff like
Yeah, yeah.
that.
It was like some made up shit. Yeah.
Yeah, but that was thought to be true by
Yeah,
a
that
lot
was
of
like
smart.
completely. Yeah, that was believed in the time. Yeah.
Yeah, and in the time it was like, no, this is true science. Here's
Yeah.
the data to it, and then it finds out that a lot of these people's bias played into the discovery and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And for me to say that I think that is way ramped down nowadays, but could it still be prevalent? Possibly, because me and you both know that 100 years in the future now, they're going to be looking back going, wow, you guys really missed it. You were close,
Yeah.
but you missed it. And so my thing is like, anytime something like that comes up, I love it. And I almost look for it.
Yeah.
And history and I always say, like, if I had to pick like a dream job that was like a safe dream job,
Yeah.
I'd pick like an archaeologist if I knew I was going to discover stuff.
Yeah, yeah. If you can go to certain areas that you knew were unexplored, at least, you know.
Yeah, and could like find some cool shit.
Yeah.
Not just like, oh hey, here's some bones in South Carolina, like have fun. Like,
Yeah.
oh, it's from a cow.
Yeah, you made some new subspecies. You found some new like type of fish that's like
Yeah,
slightly
cool
different.
thing,
It's got
whatever.
different fins. Yeah.
Yeah, so that stuff really interests me. The giant thing, I just think is such a like. If that story,
Yeah.
if the story about American soldiers fighting some freaking giant is actually true,
Yeah, that's like sick. That's like almost like you can imagine. They should make a movie about that.
right?
Like they're like, all right, we got to go to this secret mission, and then it turns out there's a fucking giant with a spear. It's like, what the?
Yeah,
It's
I
like a
know.
predator.
But like, so my thing is, why cover it up? If it is true, then why cover it up?
Well-
Like, why hide it?
Do you know if they covered it up, or do you know if it was like something that people are overplaying? Like, there's so many things there that like, I have questions with.
There is so many things, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying, if it was true, I always ask myself, why would the government cover
Yeah, what's the
giant
motive
stuff?
behind
What's
it?
the motive? Why would the Smithsonian hide giant bones if there were giant bones?
Mm-hmm.
And even if they were fake, why would they hide those?
Yeah.
Like, that's the other thing, because there's shitloads of pictures.
Mm-hmm.
I know one thing, and this is different topic, but there's a place in Texas where there was a earthquake and some land peeled back, and they found dinosaur footprints in an old riverbed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And inside the dinosaur footprints was a human footprint. Like, there's big dinosaur footprint, boom, and there's a human footprint right in the middle on ground that just got peeled back up. And Nova went out and did a documentary series on it, and they interviewed one of the scientists from Nova and asked him, like, have you seen the footprint inside the dinosaur
And he
footprint?
keeps saying no because he doesn't look at it.
Because
right?
he wouldn't look at it.
I don't know. I don't think that's how it. I don't think that people. I'd have to look more into that story, but I feel like it's more than just somebody not looking at it or somebody not like I feel like there's more understanding. Because if that actually happened, I feel like that'd be like a huge deal. I feel like people would want to look at that. You know.
A lot of people went there and studied it. But that particular guy from Nova went
Yeah.
there and he said, like, he wouldn't look at it
Yeah, he was being an idiot. Yeah.
because it disrupted his
The way that he.
preconceived notion of dinosaurs or inhumans and interacting and stuff like that. But I like dinosaurs for me is just like a thing when I was a kid. Like, they're just cool.
Yeah, you're wearing a T-Rex hat.
Yeah, I know.
Did you
You're
specifically wear it for this?
No, I didn't.
Oh.
That's kind of just a fun coincidence.
Yeah.
But it's just, well, okay, I'll give you a little tiny story. When we lived in Charleston, Mackenzie and I, she'd always be studying at the library, and I would always just go there and study with her. So it's like me and one of her friends would study at the library, and then we'd always pass like one of the College of Charleston's buildings on the way back. Well, no, we had our way back, but I would always want to walk by one of the buildings because they had a T-Rex display in the center of the building. It was all like glass front.
Yeah.
So I'd always walk by it. I'd always intentionally take that way home so I could walk by it.
Yeah.
It's just super cool. Like, just it's like being a kid again type thing. And to think like, man, those things, did a human ever see one? It's just fun to me.
Yeah, there were some big ass animals though too that humans definitely at one point probably like saw. Like, have you heard I don't know where this was on the Joe Rogan show or where it was, but there was some bridge to Virginia and there was these big ass bears that were like 3 times the size of a regular bear, and like people were like terrified of these things because they were literally like just like polar bears, they're super carnivorous and they would eat you. That's like something that's super cool because like that's something that we know happened, and people would have to fight off these massive fucking bears.
Yeah.
You know.
And there's no more. I think it was the short-faced bear.
Swordfish bear, you're right.
I think
Yeah.
that's what it was.
Yeah. There's a bunch of those animals, even like megalodons or something like that. I don't know if the megalodons were around when humans were technically around or whatever, but I don't know.
And there's like Loch Ness, and then there's, I don't know about Loch Ness. Loch Ness
There's
became,
definitely like animals like that have existed in the past, though,
yeah.
like plesiosaurs
Well,
and
have you
monsters.
have you ever seen have you ever, okay, so there's Lake Champlain up in like Vermont,
Mm-hmm.
and people have always said they've seen stuff and this and that, and then there's like shit that had washed up on shore that like people have no clue what the hell it is.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen any of those pictures?
No. Can I look it up right now?
Yeah, like look up Lake Champlain or Lake Champlain monster washed up or something like that. There's been a couple of different pictures.
Okay. There's just a big ass fish here. Bunch of fish. Was there another? Was there something? What is the thing that washed up? Was it like a?
I'll see if I can find some of the stuff because I know Lake Champlain is one of them, but I don't know if that's the exact one. But I know stuff has washed up there. So there's been a lot of like, I'm looking for the historical type stuff because some of the stuff can be photoshopped really easily. A lot of the times, like stuff washes up and like this could be easily photoshopped. I know that's kind of hard to see, but there's a couple of like old photos that are like that, definitely photoshopped or that. But there's been a bunch of photos of like really weird, cool. Let's see if I have this view. Yeah, I do got it. I'll full screen it so I can see the one that I want to find. There's one from like the early 1900s. And Google's going to piss me off because I'm not going to be able to find it. But there's been like, there's like full articles. Maybe not sea monsters. Trying to find. And then there's like a radio show one where they like blew it up with dynamite because the thing stunk so bad. Oh, I want to find this so bad. There's a specific picture that I'm looking for.
I swear, like every single time I see anything about or the Loch Ness monster or like the Lake Champlain thing, it seems like it's just some shitty picture. Like it's never a good picture.
No, never. None of that stuff is ever a good picture. There's Piper. That's not it. Damn it, why can't I find this stupid thing? It's called cryptozoology. I think is what it's called. I bet you if I search this on DuckDuckGo, I'd find it. That's definitely not working. Typing one hand is hard.
Why do you spell sush?
Yeah, I typed wrong.
Oh, okay.
Did you ever see the I know that's not one. There's a there's it won't even show me this picture. There's this like massively huge animal that like some Japanese fishing boat pulled up. It was stuck in their net. It was just like a dead body, and it's on like a Japanese stamp and stuff now. They don't even have that picture on here. Right here. This is a real picture.
Yeah, plesiosaur.
That's kind of what it looks like, but it was they found it in a Japanese fishing net.
Holy shit!
And I think there's a better picture of this, but really, really cool. Just kind of fun. I don't know. And then there's another fish, because this is my thing. Obviously, scientists aren't, I don't think they're idiots, but here's another one, kind of harder to see. But they're like, oh, this fish, it lived like 200 million years ago, and then they find that fish still living, swimming around. Mm-hmm. And whether it lived 200 million years ago, we don't know. But the fact that it's like, oh, hey, we thought this thing was extinct and it's actually not, is just super fun. There's the multiples, like the full pictures of it right there, like not zoomed in version. Just super interesting, cool. I wish I would have. How do you spell plesiosaur?
Plesiosaur is how you spell it. Plesiosaur. E-O. Oh, what I-O? I meant, my bad. Yeah, there it is.
This might lead me to find my other one.
Typically, those things are huge compared to the little ones.
I think this is the picture right here, and it's freaking tiny.
Hoax Museum blog.
Yeah, this might be a hoax, but well, the site's not real. Or this one. That's one of them.
Looks like a dolphin.
There's the full picture, and it has like a neck. But yeah, it looks like a dolphin. But still, that's pretty. If you look at the guy's legs, maybe it's just distancing and stuff, like super close to the camera. But I think this is the original picture. That's the head right there.
It's a 260 by 156.
Yeah, it's from like
Here, scroll in on it. Oh, never mind. Oh, okay. That's okay. So yeah, that's like the neck. Okay, you can scroll back out. I don't know. Sorry, I was just trying to see.
But just just differently, cool old shit. Oh, this stuff is just so freaking cool.
Just seeing crazy shit that washes up on the shore.
Yeah, here's another picture of that Japanese one. But like, if that thing was real, like, even like the whole, like all the Meg stuff.
Yeah.
That shit would just be so awesome if it like someone found just one.
Have you found the bigger? Because the plesiosaur is the smaller one. The biggest one's I remember Jurassic World, the big.
Yeah.
So that's the
big massive one.
That's a mosasaur, I believe.
So I think that if any dinosaur was to keep existing, it would have to be something that wasn't too big. Yeah. Because of food sources.
Yeah, it's going to be a smaller version of it.
Yeah, because food sources, like if you're this big, massive thing that had to like survive, then you'd have to have this abundance of food. And if some crazy thing happened and your food source kind of dropped off, then no, they're never going to keep on living. But if something was like small enough to where it could still survive off the food source that was available, that'd be pretty cool. I had somewhere else I was going to go with this stuff too. Now I can't remember it. Oh, I bet. Dang, just super badass stuff. I think dinosaurs are so cool. But the giant thing is more like recent history. Yeah. And you can kind of find some sources on it. So that's why I think it's interesting. And it's weird that they like pick out this as far as the one Native American one. They like specifically say like a red-haired giant that was eating other, or what's it called when a human eats other human?
Cannibalism?
Yeah, they're cannibals.
Oh, so they cannibalize. They actually eat the other giant.
Yeah. No, they eat the Native Americans.
Oh, and that's technically cannibalism because it's...
Yeah, human to human. Okay. And they had red hair. So that's why they wanted to like kill them off. That's like the story. It's just super like cool. If it is true. If it was true. Even though it's still a fun story. But well, I don't know. What do you have any like weird conspiracies or anything that you might slightly think plausible?
I don't think there's anything like. I think everything that I believe typically has some sort of something to it. Like I don't think there's anything. I don't like making large assumptions. Like if I have to make a large assumption, typically I don't really go there. Just kind of like, all right.
You won't even look into it.
Yeah, I don't typically go down those routes. I just kind of like wait, and if there's more information that comes out, that's really cool. But if not, I kind of just like I try and make the best assumption I can. If someone asks me about it, I'll say like the evidence is there, but like I don't I don't know. I don't like making. I don't like. I'm not a very very big conspiracy guy.
You don't like being wrong.
In a way, I guess, but I don't have the interest there for those things. Initially, like if it were about me not being wrong, it'd be me being like, oh, I don't like that. Like I don't want to talk about that because I don't know. I don't know anything about it. But like I don't have the feeling of like I want to talk about this. Like this is something that I want to focus on rather than like something like a current event. I'm rather than like I like the idea of just like focusing on whatever current event is going on, like finding the most about information I can about that.
Yeah, practicality type stuff too.
Yeah,
like it's more practical and you actually can implement it into your life, stuff like that. Yeah, I get that. Well, did you have anything else to say on the whole Second Amendment? We've been going for 2.5 hours now, so.
I don't think there's anything else that I think that we sort of disagree on. Do you think that overall the Twitter files were like a I don't think you do, but do you think that they were like a good like news source of information, or do you think that they were just kind of like?
I think they're a little lackluster.
Okay,
so
yeah,
far.
I think that's where I'm at.
That's kind of like what I think. I think there is almost like the thing that makes me mad and the thing that makes me second guess myself a little bit is all it is kind of like a smoking gun, and they're like almost just leaving it at that. Like so far, well, who knows what's gonna come out next or whatever, but it's just like a smoking gun type thing.
Yeah,
and it's like, okay, I get smoking gun. If you see a smoking gun, that means a shot had to be fired and a projectile went somewhere, but you're not giving me what's been fired, and you're not giving me a impact point either.
There's not a lot of new information, I would say. There's nothing here that I'm like, I haven't seen this before. There's nothing there to change my mind. Like there's nothing that significantly would be like, holy shit, I never thought about that. Now I think this completely different thing of Twitter or.
Other than Elon Musk might be just using this to make his platform more money so that they don't go bankrupt.
Yeah, that's. I think that's one of the biggest points to take away.
Yeah, but where's your data for it?
I mean, the problem is that I'm seeing an issue and I'm trying to prescribe motives to it, and I'm going to process elimination.
And that's a very probable thing.
Yeah, it's very probable.
And I think the topic on the role of social media and stuff like that. Well, we didn't necessarily get into the role exactly of it, but I think like just social media. What are your beliefs just on social media as a whole? Just period.
Like, what does it do for us?
Just your personal beliefs about social media. Good, bad, indifferent.
I think it can be a really good thing. I think it allows us to kind of like have conversations about certain things, learn about certain things, and see instead of just like a published source or like a pre like whatever like doctor document is going to. It's like this is what people actually believe about these subjects, and I think it's really cool to see like crazy people talk about like these crazy, really like far out topics too, like and have arguments about whether or not like they make any sense. I think it's a good place to kind of like go and just see overall opinions and also like things that people's opinions on news as well.
Have you ever seen the movies Ready Player One?
Yes, I have.
Would you ever be? What are your thoughts on like, social media being shut down like Tuesdays and Thursdays or something like that?
I don't like that. I don't know. I don't think that's like. I don't think that we can just arbitrarily choose days to like, because then at that point we're just going to these companies and we're like, hey, your company can't run these days. It's like the government.
Yeah.
So I think in that way it's bad. If it
do
would help,
do you think it would help in the population though?
I don't think it would. I don't think that social media is necessarily hurting anybody. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think that's really like causing people to go crazy or anything. Or like, I don't know. I think it just gives us I think that people just need to socialize more, honestly. I think that's where it comes from. Like people don't have that social network where they're going out and talking to people anymore as much because they can go on Discord and they go on their phones, or they can find more fun stuff to do at home. So they're not socializing people, and then social media comes in. They only see social media, and that's their only view of the world. And I think that's where people go crazy.
Yeah, that's for that reason I think social media is bad.
Yeah.
I think it just gives you a false assumption of what the real world is.
Yeah, nobody actually like all this stuff. I think that's one of the reasons why and Destiny talks about this too, why people like who have these conspiracy theories or have people like why people believe certain people on the right or the left believe these things, because whenever people go on social media, they see these really crazy points, like insane conspiracies or insane things on the left where it's like these people are like transing their kids at like 5 years old. And like you could be like, oh, well, that's like I disagree with that, but then you see people defend this and you're like, who's defending this? And you see like I don't know if it's like however many likes, you can see like 60,000 likes. You're like, people actually believe this massive amount of people believe this stuff, and you think that's like the main point. I think people prescribe those things to the right and the left, and that's what their viewpoint becomes of the world. And I think that's a problem.
Yeah.
Because you're not actually hearing.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. I think that's a good place to stop it.
Yeah.
We had some comments in here. I think it was pretty good. We had some different people in here. Darren was in here. Mackenzie was in here. Mike D was in here. I was. But I think that's a good place to stop. I think this was a pretty good discussion about most of the stuffs.
I think we agreed on nearly everything.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a single thing that we fully disagree. I mean, maybe the red flag laws, maybe, but like for the most part, I think we're on the same page about everything. So.
I mean, I want people to be safer with guns. I just think it's more of on an individual level and, a familial level than it is someone stepping in and
telling you how to use your guns.
Yeah, I think, I'm for government involvement in certain things if the need is there. But I think that's a good place to stop. Anyways, thank you guys for checking us out. If you want to be part of the Discord group, the link is down in the description. And that's just pretty much a place where we put our links and our ideas, and there's places to talk and chat around and stuff like that. So if you're interested, check it out. Links down below. Anyways, thank you guys for checking us out. Hope you guys have a good